Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting on Thursday, April 19th in Sebastian, Florida. First order of business is please rise for a Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Janet. Could we have a roll call, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Roth.
Here.
Mr. Simmons.
Present.
Mr. Carter.
Present.
Mr. Reyes.
Here.
Mr. Motti.
Here.
Mr. Eugen.
Here.
Mr. Alvarez.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Under announcements, two commissioners have been excused tonight, Mrs. Kottenberg and Mr. Quiselbosch. Voting in their place are two alternates, Mr. Simmons and Mr. Motti. They'll be voting in their place tonight on all matters. We do have another announcement, and I would like to call on Lisa Fraser, our Community Development Director, for a special announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This evening, Commission, I passed out to you a flyer announcing that here in Sebastian, we will be holding a planners training workshop that it's actually sponsored by the Florida Association of Counties. Excuse me, still getting over that cold. But it's also supported by the APA section, that's the American Planning Association section Atlantic Coast, which you're a member of, and I'm past chair. So we will be holding this workshop here in the Sebastian City Hall, and more information will be forthcoming, but potentially our group will pay for in full you all to attend that planners training workshop. And I would really recommend that if you can make it, that you do attend. With it comes the planning officials handbook and lunch, and it's right here. It's a great course taught by Gene Bowles, who's with University of Florida, and very, very knowledgeable in sunshine law and Robert's Rules of Orders and why we do what we do as a planning commission.
Thank you.
Okay.
I've already marked that on my calendar.
Thank you, Mr. Roth. Second, and I really wanted to do this at this point during the announcements because we do have such great attendance this evening, we will be starting on our CRA master plan update. The schedule that we have laid out is calling for a public involvement workshop on June 5th, which you will see is 2 days before the planners training workshop. But we would like as much public input as possible regarding our CRA district and updating that master plan. So that date will be June 5th. Again, this will be on our website in the near future, but June 5th, and we will have two opportunities between 12 and 2 and 6 and 8 on that day to come forward. We'll present to you what we have found and what's existing in our CRA area and give the public that opportunity to give us feedback on what they'd like to see. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Would you recommend that as commissioners we attend both of those sessions if we can, work permitting?
I wouldn't recommend both. I think just one. I mean, because they'll be very similar. We just do those times in order to accommodate as much public as possible. You know, there's a lot of individuals who may be free at lunch or more free in the evening, but I wouldn't recommend coming to both. Just one would be more than adequate. And then please remember that when the draft plan is completed, this commission will review that plan to make sure that it is compatible with our comprehensive plan. So you will all get an opportunity to look at it, review it, recommend it for approval.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, and Dory just asked me to clarify, the CRA is just our riverfront. Our community redevelopment area is just our riverfront, everything east of the railroad to the river, okay? Thank you.
That's still a big area. A lot of development and retail commercial there. Next order of business is review and approval of the minutes from the February 15th, 2018 meeting. The commissioners had a chance to review that, and if so, are there any comments, suggestions, corrections? Silence, I guess. Janet's done a great job. Anyone prepared to make a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we accept the minutes of February 15th, 2018 as submitted.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Approved as submitted. Next on the agenda is, we have tonight 4 items on our quasi-judicial and public hearings, and just want to make sure for those folks that are here present right now that each item will be read individually by City Attorney James Stokes and will be reviewed. The petitioner will have an opportunity to present it to the commission. There'll be questions back and forth. After that, the public will have an opportunity to speak in favor or opposed, and then the commission will deliberate on each and vote on each one individually. There is another opportunity later in the agenda for other items to come up. So if you have comments on these 4 items, address it then. If not, wait till the other part of the meeting. Also, I'd just like to make a point that if you're here as a group on one particular item and you have a designated spokesperson, have them talk. And if there's quite a few, we can do a show of hands to show who all is here supporting that particular point, rather than repeating items. So it just keeps things moving along quicker, and same point is made, the same emphasis is placed. We value ourselves on the Plan Commission, making sure that everyone has an opportunity to talk and present their thoughts, and we do have a set procedure to follow. At this point, what I would like to do is, on the first item, is have City Attorney James Stokes read the item for us, which is a conditional use permit.
Okay, item A is approval of a conditional use permit for a new model home and requisite parking at 1888 Barber Street, which is Tract C, Block 456, Sebastian Highlands, Unit 17.
Commissioners, do you have any ex parte communications on this particular project, just on this one? Any communications? Okay, hearing none, then there are none. At this point, I would ask the attorney to swear in those who are from the public and also staff that will be presenting information on this particular project.
Okay, would anybody who's going to speak on this item please stand and raise your right hand? That includes staff. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you will give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. At this point, I will call on staff. I believe, Dory, you're handling this particular project, to give us the findings from the staff on this particular project, correct?
Chairman, usually the applicant will give his presentation first, if that's okay?
Okay, that's fine. So at this point, we'll have the applicant for the conditional use permit, the new model home, come forward. And if you would, we're going to go a little bit different. In addition to speaking your name and address, could you please spell your last name, just so that we have it absolutely perfect in the records?
Absolutely.
But we're not picking on you. You happen to be the first one.
It's good and bad. My name's Clay Patton, P-A-T-T-O-N. My address is 3796 Peacock Drive in Melbourne, Florida. As was stated earlier, the property address that is in question is the 188 Barber Street. I work for D.R. Horton, a nationwide home builder, and we are seeking approval on a conditional use permit for a model home and a parking lot on Barber Street. It's a paved parking lot, as you can see, 9 standard slots, and then a handicap as well. And you know, here for any questions that somebody might have, or.
Commissioners have any questions? I'm sorry, jumping out of order again. We'll just have the staff.
Commissioners, this is a request for a conditional use for a model home, conditional permit in that zoning district for a model home. There is specific criteria that they needed to show that they were going to meet on their application. Basically, usually our model homes come in as a residential, single-family home permit, and as they get started, then the home builder or the construction company will come in and request it to become a model home. We require items such as a certain amount of parking. One sign on page 2 is that list. It cannot be used as a contractor's main office. No construction materials or equipment can be stored. There's some business hours that are regulated. They can only have one sign, 6 square feet. And the parking, as I mentioned, 5 parking spaces. We have shown, I think it was just an error in their application. They said that their sign would be 36 square feet. I think the person that filled out the application meant that it was going to be 6 square feet. They have to come in with a separate permit for that. We'll verify that it's 6 square feet. This is on a large tract, larger than normal in in the Sebastian Highlands, which is usually quarter acre. This is almost a full acre. We have had some previous conversations with the property owner that I think after the model home is completed being used as a model, they are plans to split the property and have another single-family home. So there'll be 2 single-family homes. The model homes usually, sometimes the garage is used where they can show people looking at the house carpet colors and paint colors, cabinet type of models. I don't know if that's going to be, this is strictly a spec home. We will be with our temporary signs, we've gone over with what they can have with regards to flags and open signs, which are prohibited. So staff has recommended approval of this. Right now, they are under construction. I don't think the parking lot has been poured yet, but when they do, there will be landscaping. They are required to have enough trees for 1 acre, so I think there's about 15 to 18 trees that'll be added to the site, and staff recommends approval of this conditional use permit.
Thank you, Dory. Now, do the commissioners have any questions? Let's start on this side. Mr. Simmons?
The question I had was regarding the 0.99 acres, but Dory answered the question on that. You plan on split it and having 2 homes?
Not initially. After we're done with the model, we can tear up the parking lot.
Right, I understand that. Okay, that was the only question that was answered.
No. So far, I'm okay.
None? Mr. Reyes?
I didn't see an architectural plan on your proposed model. Do we typically get that?
Not an architectural, but they had attached to your packet, there are some colored elevations. It was a part of an email that was sent to us, but it did show at the front their model that they're using, elevation C, the Cali, floor plan, and a conceptual sign.
This lot is obviously part of the same plat with the adjoiners.
Yes, it's part of Sebastian Highlands, and actually with the parking design, there's a driveway for the single-family home off of Barber Street. The original plan had actually 2 driveways for the parking lot, another driveway onto Barber Street. It's right at a curve that the city has had some problems with cars running off. They've actually put some rumbled sticks on the apron, and there's a painted island in the middle of that. So we did have to ask them to remove that driveway, that additional driveway on Barber Street. It's going to be on Curtis Circle now. They'll be able to put a small model home parking directional sign, but there'll be a driveway off of Curtis and a driveway off of Barber Street.
Is that .99 including the easement in the back?
Yes.
I now have no further questions or anything.
With the parking lot, I apologize, I had made my recommendation of approval. We do have 4 conditions, though, with that recommendation. One of them is that when the model home ceases to renew their permit, that the parking area, all the concrete and any joining sidewalks does have to be removed. They have to go back to a single-family resident use without this additional parking lot. I think at that point is probably when they're going to split the lot anyways. The other 3 conditions were no illegal flags off-premise or off-premise signs, building permit for the model sign, and verification, no construction materials or equipment will be stored or parked on the property since it is such a large site. We don't want it to end up being used as a construction site, storage area for D.R. Horton for their other homes.
On our model home conditional use permits, which is typically a year.
They're good for a year, and then they do need to renew them. You had changed the process, though, where just the initial application comes before you, and then renewals are done at administrative level.
D.R. Horton have any other model homes in the area?
As far as in the Highlands, as of right now, there's no plans on having any more.
Sebastian?
If they acquire a community, then they probably will intend on having a model in it.
I have a question here, because I feel such a huge parking lot, and you're not established here yet. You just said it. So, I mean, you got 10 spaces here. That concrete is 12 feet by 20. I mean, it's huge. If you look at this, right in the middle of, town.
Well,
So
I know a lot of builders are doing gravel or mulch. We wanted to do a nice asphalt parking lot.
Because I've seen other ones over there. They're not as. We just approved one down the road, which is Ando, not too long ago. And that wasn't as big.
Yes.
And
The builders are probably trying to figure out how many people will become visiting. It is up to each individual owner, as long as there's 5. A lot of the model homes will have, you get credit for 2 in your driveway, and then they usually have 3 additional parking spaces. Models are the only uses that allow the back-out parking onto a street. So we are happy to see that there aren't any back-out parking onto Barber Street, especially at that busy intersection area. So we're happy to see the on-site parking lot. It was their determination to, put that much parking in. 5 is required. But it technically meets code for what the minimum parking that's necessary.
No, but still, to me, it's like, all right. Is there any possible you can reduce that parking? Because, you see it here in paper, but once you see that concrete there and those slabs and everything going up, it's totally different.
Yeah, we're also planning on, putting a hedgerow of plants around the parking lot there. I don't know where the number 10 came from. I think, we had an architect or an engineer design it, and I guess proportionally on the lot, that's what we came up with. Can we reduce it? Sure.
Because I've been through model homes. We have business, but it's not, you're not going to have 10 vehicles there at one time, I'm sure.
Now, if they reduced it, they would have to keep 5. They would still have to keep the drive aisle. so at least a two-way drive aisle. So it would just be one row of parking if that was reduced.
No, it's fine. Thank you. Okay.
I have no questions.
I have one more question.
Okay.
In the rear of the lot up against the waterway, is there a grading plan for that?
It's actually it's the Joe Haven Waterway. I believe the grading plan, as you can see, the arrows do show the direction of the drainage, and there is a top of bank that looks to be about 20 feet from the edge of the right-of-way. Drainage was reviewed during the house permit from our stormwater department.
The existing top of bank is into the property is gonna remain like that? So they're not planning on matching up to the adjoining lots or anything like that?
The lot to the rear?
Yeah, I mean, it looks like, just from the aerial, I should have visited, well, although the one adjoiner has some overgrowth back there, but it looks like those lots back, the adjoiners have a nice bank going along back there that they've been maintaining.
Oh, along the waterway?
Yes, sir. So, I mean, you show, I guess the engineer's showing, you guys are showing some spot elevations of 21.0, which is lower than the bank, the top of bank, where you're gonna have the water coming back at your house. So,
I think there'll be
curious as to if there was planning on doing any work to that drainage area back there and the adjoiner on the other side, the drainage easement, if that's gonna be graded and turned into an actual swale, drainage swale.
Yeah, we'll have a horseshoe swale around the house, obviously going out to the front swale. I guess we'll have to, typically on that adjoiner, there's a shared swale. We could pitch into that swale and then pitch into the swale on the edge
I
of
agree with that,
Curtis.
but your lot is unimproved, so the adjoiners are improved, and I'm sure that swale's got a grade up to it where they've been maintaining it.
Yes, sir.
So when you do your side, are you planning on creating a slope to that swale and maintaining that swale, front and rear of
Yes,
the
it's-
property?
It'll be fully sodded,
I'm
irrigated.
not seeing that on these plans, so
Yeah.
that's why I'm asking all these questions. Typically, I get a little bit more
Sure, I can,
from
on
the
that side
engineering
of,
plans.
on that side of the house, on that east side, we had mostly looked at the parking. I certainly can check with our stormwater department to see what their concerns were when they reviewed the single-family house permit. I know that because it is under
Stormwater is a
construction.
big issue in our city, and I'd prefer that the builder take, the cost of it while they're improving this lot and take care of that swale there.
Yes, it'll have to be
So it
graded,
should be
but we,
done during this phase.
Yep. I can have the stormwater, Mr. Patnode, look over this drainage plan, and
Right.
if there's
Those
any.
are some of my concerns.
Yes.
Thank you.
I have a question. Staff, is septic available, I'm sorry, is sewer available in that area?
No.
It's not, okay. That explains why there's a field system here. Okay. All my other questions were answered. So the commissioner is okay then with their questions? Then at this point, thank you, Mr. Patton.
You're welcome, thank you.
What we'll do is open it to the public first for those who wish to speak in favor of the project. And if you do come forward, give your name, address, and again, please spell your last name. And I'm not seeing any folks jump up.
talk a little bit into the mic, Joe.
Oh, all right, would you like to speak in favor of the project?
No.
Okay.
I have some concerns.
Okay, well, no one jumped up anyway, so the next part would be those who wish to speak in opposition to the project, please come forward, give your name and address, and spell your last name, please.
Good evening. My name is John Antosia, A-N-T-O-S-I-A. I reside at 109 Curtis Circle.
Okay,
I have a few concerns, and maybe they can address them, maybe they can't. We're going to start from when they first did this site plan. Before they put up their barriers, they did an awful lot of pushing of debris. A lot of it went into that canal bank area and really dirtied up a lot of water. After that, the barricades went up. That started it. Secondly, we're really concerned in the neighborhood that this is a zoned residential area. It's not a commercial area. When you operate a model home, in my words, that's a commercial piece of property because you're getting people to come in. We have a daycare center across the street. It's a school zone with a lot of young children. We don't need more traffic there. Case in point. While they were clearing the property, we noticed that they had surveyed the property. They had tagged a tremendous amount of trees to save. There were some beautiful palms, a lot of oaks, some different types of palms. When they came in and bulldozed a lot down to the ground, all 3 lots. They left 2 trees standing on the back side of those homes. That's it. I'm not allowed to pull trees down without permitting. They bulldoze every one down. Every single one. They just raped that lot to the ground. As we move forward, that was also a noise buffer for most of the houses there because of the traffic and the schools and everything. That's all gone. I can't blame them. It's their property. They bought it. You also addressed drainage issues. If you go into the county, and I've already got a couple of reports in long before this place was built about the flooding that happens on Curtis Circle at the back end of the circle when we get hard rain. There's just no drainage. When they built this home, they elevated the house and they put a pseudo culvert in the front. They've also pitched everything so it's all going to drain into Curtis. And it's going to just add to catastrophic flooding. When we had the big storms last year, we had standing water out there for weeks. It's just going to add to it. And to put another access on Curtis, you're just adding a traffic flow that's just not going to be conducive to homeowners that have bought there.
question, you said they put a culvert in?
They have already installed a culvert in the middle of that property in the front.
Okay,
On the, I guess you would say, west of where the driveway is going to be, which is going to go nowhere. All you're going to do is put water into a swale that's going to run down the street, and it's going to flood further than it is now. You've done nothing on the canal side. Like I said, you're also going to add so much traffic flow. You know, we were under the impression that when they built a home, they were going to build a spec home, and it was going to be pre-sold or sold, and it was a 3-lot area for 3 homes. They've determined it's going to be 2. That's fine. It's their property. I need to ask a question also because we're talking about, is this their only model home? Express Homes, which is DR Homes, also is in the process of completing a home on Addy Street, which is around the corner from there. It's identical to that home. Is that a spec home or is it sold?
For it to be a model home, it would have to come in with this same application, so
So
it's...
you're going to put in 2 model homes within a half a mile of each other?
No, it's not going to be a model home, sir. They haven't come in for an application. It's just a
As yet.
single-family residence.
As yet.
Usually right after they start construction, they usually come in with this permit application. We have not received any application for that house on Addy.
Well, you've also waited until the cart is in front of the horse to
Mr.
apply
Chair,
for a model home.
I would ask that you ask the speaker to direct the board, not staff,
Okay,
please.
you've also applied to do this, you know, per se, you put the cart in front of the horse because you've built your home, now you want it to be a model home. And in fact, if you have another model or spec or soon-to-be model, we don't know that, just down the street on Addy, which is the identical home built by the same builder, and that's why do we need another spec or model home? And we're putting this right on Barber, and you know how busy Barber Street is. And we have kids, and we have a bus stop right there in front of that little school that's there every day. You want to put a parking area, you want to add more traffic flow. And you want to, I'm sorry to say, but you know, when you buy in a residential area, you don't need a commercial operation in front on the corner that you have to see, the traffic noise is increased.
Okay.
What do you do?
Do you have anything further to add that would be different than what you've already spoken?
Nope, I think that'll do it.
Okay, all right, great. Well, thank you very much for
Thank you
your
for your
input.
time.
Yes. Yes, sir.
My name is Bob Seyfried, Seyfried. I live at 1883 Barber Street, just about across the street from the house, definitely across the street from the big dirt lot they left. My concern is with the traffic flow. It's hard enough in the morning to try and get out of there. You're going to be increasing more traffic, and the traffic as it is heavy and very rarely at the speed limits. Generally, it's well over. It's not going to get any better with the home going in with the extra parking across the street.
I think to one point, to answer one of your questions is the parking. The lot itself is off to the side, and it's off of Curtis, not off of Barber. And I think some thought was given to that. And during construction, there might be more traffic, but when the model is there, it won't have near the same traffic flow. And people don't come to look at houses that early in the morning either. But anyway, your points are well taken. Was there anything else you wish to add?
Well, they've got the one house up, and they're going to put a parking lot with entrance from the side street. What happens to the rest of that property? Now, right now, it's just a giant dirt pile.
It needs to be finished off.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
Hello. How you doing? My name is Stephen Gould. I live at 1879 Barber Street, right across the street, next door to Mr. Siegfried.
Okay.
Gould. Okay, basically, like, aesthetically speaking, like, it's not nearly, like, I bought that house because of seclusion. I bought the house because it was a very rural-looking area, lots of trees, lots of nice, natural Sebastian palms. And they did tell me that I couldn't even, the one that's going in my backyard, it's into the power line. I wasn't allowed to move it because it was a native species. They got rid of all the native species. Aesthetically speaking, when you walk out of my house, you used to see a whole bunch of woods. It was really nice. Now you see a big dirt parking lot, which they're going to pave. This is just not what I signed up for. I got a 30-year mortgage on a house that across the street was really residential. Like, I lived in Merritt Island. I looked for a home all through Melbourne. I ended up in Sebastian. I drive an hour to get to work because I like the way Sebastian was. I like the way my house sat. Now, I know it'll never go back to how it was, and I get that these people bought it, but a parking lot really sucks. If I have to walk out of my house and look at a parking lot every morning, that's not a good thing. It won't help my property value. It will just hurt me. So I didn't know. I thought that we were some way protected, and I've heard all kinds of stories about those 3 lots, about people trying to buy them, and they couldn't clear trees or whatever, so they couldn't buy it. Now it's done. Just concerned about what it's going to do. The value of my home and traffic is always an issue. Mm-hmm. But the value, man, who wants to live across the street from a freaking parking lot?
Thank you for your comments. We appreciate it, and we've got a record of it.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks again.
I appreciate you.
Anyone else to speak in opposition?
Evening, Ben Hocker, City of Sebastian, Hocker. I'm going to ask this of Dave, and I'm concerned on it. You're concerned on the drainage, et cetera, on this particular piece of property. 2 years ago, the county came here. That total intersection of Schumann running down into Vero There's talk that they're going to purchase the swale, do some things, and it'll end up a 4-lane intersection. Was that taken into consideration in the issuing of this plan? Did anybody contact the county? They also told us the city was going to have about $2 million that we'd be putting up. It was roughly two and a half years ago. I drive that road frequently. I live just before the bend on where Filbert Street is. And we've always got water on that intersection near the drain or the canal. And again, if we're going to see this road in the future widened, and you're putting in additional entrances coming in off of Barber Street for the 3 homes or 2 homes or whatever the man's going to do, I think someone ought to take a real good look at where the drainage might be a major problem. At that time, they said that little child care daycare center, the county was going to take the front of that property up to the face of the building, or relatively close, and trade off a piece of property in the back for them, for their parking. And the swale that's located on the opposite side would have to be purchased for a portion of it. The major problem they had was the school, because they would have to get property from the school to do the intersection. And I think it sort of went into limbo at that point. But the drainage there, I come around that corner after a real heavy rain, yeah, I don't slow down too much. I wash my windshield. It's been a problem.
Well, that will be looked into.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Harker. Anyone else to speak in opposition?
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Damian Gilliams. I'm here this evening on behalf of my brother.
I'm sorry. We know, but could you spell your last name for the record, please?
Gilliams. And we have property in the area. My family does. And we're concerned about a few things. Well, obviously, traffic is definitely going to be an issue, being that you're going to be conducting home sales in the area. And anytime you're doing home sales, it's creating traffic, and it's more of a commercial use because you got people coming and going. Now, I see on the agenda that the type of permit that you'll be issuing will be a conditional use permit. Am I correct, Mr. Chairman?
That's correct.
Okay.
For 1 year.
Right. So that means that this board has the authority and the power to tie conditions to this permit, meaning hours of business, how things are to be done with this property that will safeguard the homeowners in this community and in this area. Now, what raises eyebrows to me, and I'm not accusing anybody of anything because I don't have the facts or the evidence, but if they're clearing property without proper permits to remove trees, then I would suggest that this board table this until further investigation can be completed by code enforcement and by the city to make sure that any and all developers that develop in our community follow our rules. It's that simple. It would be sending a message that you can come here, clear lots, don't pull permits to remove trees, and you'll get your permit just by going through the process. You must consider safety, health, and welfare of the community. People have rights that live within X amount of miles and feet of this property. I understand that it's a building proposition for the developer, and they're about profit, but there's got to be a balance. It's got to be balanced.
And I appreciate your comments that this commission will look into the points that have been made, and especially those that you're talking about on clearing, and during our deliberations, and decide whether or not to go forward or to table it. So
I appreciate that, Mr. Chairman.
Discussed.
I appreciate that because you're here to safeguard the community and to make sure that everybody plays by the rules and the ordinances and the resolutions that are on the books. It's that simple. And if they're already breaking the rules, then that's sending a wrong message. And we need to send a message back to the developers that's unacceptable. And we're going to also, if and when we find out that you are breaking the rules, and I'm not saying that they are, I'm just saying those are allegations, then we need to be very specific as to the conditions that we tie to this conditional use permit, based on maybe
and we
business
do.
hours, et cetera.
We're very careful on those conditions because it is in a residential area.
That's correct.
And every other model home that we've issued a one-year permit for, or use variance for, there have been specific conditions attached to it. So they don't get away scot-free, period.
Okay, well, you are in a
Thank
seat
you
of,
for your comments, I appreciate it.
yeah, you are in a seat of power to make sure that we are protected as citizens and taxpayers of this community, and you to take this in a light that it's your property. This is in your community. You may not live in this area, but when you make your decision, you don't need to make it tonight. You may go ahead and table this to a future meeting so we can get the facts.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And by the way, for the people that are sitting in the back, I purposely talk into the microphone so they can hear me, but we can't hear you and we can't hear the speakers. And that's doing a disservice to the people that showed up this evening, because I see them holding their ears because they can't hear you. So if you could do a volume check, an audio check, that would help the people understand exactly what's going on this evening, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much for your time, and thank you for your service to all the board members. We do appreciate you guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
If I may interrupt.
Is there
I
a
am
problem
having a
with the
hard
sound
time.
in this room?
Yes.
Technicians back there, can you bump up the sound in the room? Can I get a confirmation that you're able to increase the sound? Okay. Thank you. It should be louder now. Yeah, Mr. Rance, did you have a comment?
I'm standing next to you, or sitting next to you, and I was having a hard time, so I agree with Mr. Gillians. The sound is having issues tonight.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Nancy Jackal, and I live at 105 Curtis Circle. I live next... Jackel.
Okay.
Can you talk into the microphone, please, a little bit? There you go, put it down. There you go, right there.
I live next to where they're building. The 3 lots are on my side lot. So all the trees that they've taken down and what they've done has affected us. And I think building a driveway, I have a concern with them building a driveway coming in Barber that'll be next to my house and having parking lot. Because when I look out my window, I'll be looking at driveways and parking lot instead of trees or houses. And I think that'll affect my property value. Because if I went to sell my house, I don't think someone would want to buy a house next to parking in a residential area. And we built our house there. We bought our property and built 11 years ago because it was a residential area, not expecting for something like this to be built next to us.
Just so you know, the parking lot will disappear. When the use variance is dismissed, that parking lot will be gone. That is listed at least at 2 lots, and someone indicated maybe 3. I couldn't find it on my drawings right now, but we can't deny them the right that they have for building a house on a residential lot. What we're considering right now is a use variance for that for 1 year.
Okay, what'll happen after the year? When are they going to build another house there?
Well, I can't answer that, but after 1 year, if it is not approved, then the property has to be restored to its original condition, meaning the parking lot goes away, and they would be wise to build their other house if they're going to, because the entrance is there. If not, then that would have to be restored as well.
The other concern is the driveway coming in and out of Curtis Circle. Like right now, we don't have much traffic on our street, and people walk on the street, and we bike ride and have to cross Barber, but having a driveway there for a business is a concern, and kids walking to school. There aren't sidewalks there.
I think just for your satisfaction, I've written down a question, and I'm going to ask the builder what they anticipate for traffic. Because my past experience and the commission's past experience is not a lot of, a huge volume of traffic. What I'm kind of getting hints there might be. But we'll ask the builder, because there is a point where we'll have him come back up and we'll ask that question.
Mm-hmm. And will there be a buffer zone between those lots and our property? Or you were talking about swale. Is there going to be a swale between our properties? In front of our house there is. Will there be on our side lot now?
I am not clear on that.
Our side lot is the back of the properties we're talking about.
The back of it? In other words,
I'm the first house on Curtis Circle, next to the properties being built.
There is a 12-foot drainage easement there, where 6 feet each side of this property line, where typically the city is cleaning up these drainage easements and turning them into drainage swales so the water can run into the waterways. So that was my concern. Your property probably has some kind of slope into the adjacent property where it's overgrown right now. Mm-hmm. Where was the original intent of the builder was probably to put some homes on those tracks, on that track. It is only one track, that's why it's so big, but it's probably intended to be divided.
Mm-hmm. Because right now we don't have water between the lots. And there's been like a drive area, and we've never had water there. In front of the house we do, but not between the house.
In the final grading, when, if this is granted and it goes forward, then the final grading, they will have to address the grading on it and sod to take care of the water runoff. And Mr. Reyes
by looking at the existing conditions, you don't have water there because all your water is draining onto that vacant land by the elevations shown on the existing conditions survey.
Okay.
So eventually there will be a property there that's built up, and then both properties will drain to that swale, and then it should drain to the back waterway if it's done properly. That was one of my concerns.
Okay, thank you very much.
I wanted to ask a question, I guess to the city. Did the building department receive a land clearing permit for this property?
Yes, I want to clarify that D.O. Horton has not done anything unpermitted or anything that hasn't been gone through the building department. Similarly to when all of the houses are built in Sebastian, the first step is the developer, the home builder comes in with the land clearing permit. You have the right to clear cut your property at the time of a house permit, but Sebastian has tree regulations that then says, based on the size of your lot, there's a certain amount of trees that you will have to replace. It also has incentives so that if you save some trees, you get tree credits for that. They have saved, I know this was an acre, so it was a lot of land cleared, but they did have the right to go in there and land clear, and there was, I did check this before to make sure that they were going to plant the required amount of trees, or if we had to make that a condition. So they did get some credit. There's a large oak tree and a couple of palm trees that they saved in the northeast corner. But based on their size, they are required to plant 18 trees. So there's still a good amount of trees that have to be planted before they can get CO of the house. The drainage is also looked at, but based on concerns here, we would like to add that as a condition that the drainage is re-reviewed, the drainage plan. There have been some talk about 3 houses here. This was a large tract, and D.R. Horton did come in and check with us first. If they divided it into 3 lots, they had to go through a full subdivision process. But the code does allow you to have a lot and split it one time and chunk off a piece. So they'll be dividing this into 2 pieces, so there'll be 2 houses on it. As I understand it, and this is, we have worked with them on some of their warranty deeds that they've had. D.R. Horton has bought some vacant lots throughout Sebastian. I want to say at least 25 to 50 lots. This is going to be a model home so that they can, a spec home, so that people that want D.R. Horton to build a house would go in, look at the house, see what they're going to get, and then choose a lot throughout Sebastian where they would like this model built or some other models that they may have. So usually that type of traffic is very minimal during the week. You usually get your traffic on the weekend. This is not a variance or a variance for use. It is a conditional use. The code has already established conditions that they have to show us that they're going to meet. And then if you would like to add some additional conditions, based on the times, that's already a conditional use criteria. 9 to 6 is the only times that can be open.
We do have all that already in there. So
Yes, it cannot be used as a contractor's office, so when they're building those other lots, they can't store their graders and all on this lot. There is another model home, Ando Builders, I believe at 16, on Addy Street too, the corner of Barber Street and Addy. Usually your model homes are kept up very nice because the contractor wants people to buy their homes. So they're usually nicest lots in the area. I understand that there is, now they would be able to get that driveway off of Barber Street, whether it was a single-family home or a model. And the same with Curtis, depending on where that second lot is going to be. And most likely, depending on how it's divided, they'll probably keep that driveway in Curtis and use it for the single-family home that's there. But with regards to any land clearing permit or building permit, driveway review, drainage review, they have gone through all the proper processes to get where they are today.
Thank you, Dory. If we could have had that in our beginning, it would put a lot of people at ease, okay? I feel that there's nothing wrong either with what they're doing here. I just want to make sure that they're following all the building requirements, especially when it comes to stormwater. I'm sure most of the residents here that are here in opposition all visited model homes at one point when they bought their homes. These homes are all very similar, cookie cutters, so it was one builder that built all these homes in this neighborhood. The model home that's going to go here is going to have a lot of landscaping, which we always put as conditions on our model home conditional. If they would have seen some of this in these plans, it would have helped put them at ease. So I'm very happy you've explained all that. So thank you very much.
I did mention, we have discussed too, I mean, the 10 parking spaces are not required, for 5 are, and if you would like to recommend that as your additional condition, that they do drop the parking spaces down to 5, they still have the driveway in front of the house, so there's additional parking there. That can be a condition, in addition to the 4 that we have recommended, and also that the drainage be re-reviewed by the stormwater department.
They picked the favorable lot. I mean, in the past, we've had issues with trying to fit parking spaces in the model homes. We just did an Adams Homes model home. We went through a lot of trouble trying to fit parking, where they ended up having to even use some of our right-of-way for their return. So this is a great spot. The residents need to understand that this is conditional. This property will be put back to where it looks like a residence there eventually. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reyes. And, yes, sir. This is in opposition.
Yes.
Okay.
Bob Jackel, Jackel, and I live at 105 Curtis Circle. And the city engineer has already been down to the house and inspected the ditch, and he said it'd be put on the list. It'd be a while. But I just wanted you to know that he has been inspected. That's all.
Good, thank you. Well, so the city is moving along and they're on top of it. That's great. Yes, sir.
My name is Merle C. York. I live at 366 Manley.
Excuse me, could you spell your last name, please?
Y-O-R-K.
Okay.
And I live on Manley. My property is butted up to Pod 5, and I think we're missing a big picture here. Wildlife conservation. There's a field across the street from me they tried to develop. They closed them down because they was endangered turtle dens there. And every day I watch the turtles trek from the field across the street through my yard right back there behind my house where they're wanting to develop. And I'm concerned about that because I've also seen other wildlife back there. And I'm also concerned with height restrictions as far as if I'm in my backyard, somebody going to be on a second story looking down in my yard. You know, as far as privacy, are they going to consider building a wall to reduce sound from the road, more privacy? And that's just my concerns.
What's proposed is a single single-story residence. And there's nothing on here indicating a wall or anything like that.
Right, they said shrubs.
There'll be plenty of landscaping, you can count on that.
Yeah.
As Mr. Reyes was saying, developers, when they put up a house, want everyone to look how nice and favorable it is, and I can move right in there quick. So there's a lot of landscaping there that will be very attractive. And that certainly will spill over onto the other area,
Right.
the other lot.
And also my concern was if it's going to be duplexes or just homes, or, you know, as far as...
No duplexes. This is a single-family residential area. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
That was
thank
my
you.
concerns, thank you.
Okay. Anyone else to speak in opposition of the project? Seeing none. The Barber Street project. At this point, I would ask the applicant if he would like to make any comments relative to some of the points made, and the commissioners may have some questions also.
You know, I appreciate everybody's concerns.
Your last name hasn't changed, has it?
No, sir. Dory cleared up a lot of, I think, some of the concerned citizens' questions. You know, we are not here clearing lots at will. I mean, there's a very stringent, as you know, permitting procedure, land clearing permits. We are held to a very high standard from the city here. As far as somebody mentioned the temporary culvert, the culvert that was out there now, that is required by the building department. It's a plastic pipe. While we build the house, it allows water to flow through the swale, and it's just temporarily. They are, I think, in the process of setting the final culvert right now, so that is obviously inspected and put in
Good,
the
thanks
proper
for
place.
clearing that up.
But I don't have any other questions.
There was a comment made, and I think our staff addressed it, but do you have any projections as far as what you feel you're going to have for traffic? What days of the week, weekends?
You know, that's a good question. Obviously, we like traffic, but usually it's the weekends when our traffic peaks. Monday through Friday, maybe 4 or 5 cars a day on average. Some days might be 7, some days might be 4. It really depends. Is it going to be enough to impact that intersection? I don't think so. I mean, it's not a Walmart. It's a few people come in looking for homes in the area. I don't think it's going to have that much.
And you're comfortable with the hours?
Yes, sir.
And what will they be on Saturday?
Saturdays, I believe, are 10 to 6.
I had it here also. I should know too, but
Yeah,
I just wanted for the public.
Chairman, the application states Monday through Saturday, 10 to 6 p.m. and 12 noon to 6 p.m. on Sunday.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can I ask a question of the applicant?
Go right ahead.
In some cases, we've had model home agent or builders have a signage person down the street swinging a sign around, directing them to their site. I hate those.
I do too.
I don't know that we've come up with any rules on those yet, but you have an individual sitting parked in the street right away underneath an intersection, swinging a sign showing direction to their model home. That's not a condition. I mean, can we put a condition on that, Dory?
We have it as already no illegal flags or off-premise signs, so that
Is that something we can code enforce?
Yes,
I
the
would
off-premise
think so.
signs and
Okay.
flags, yes.
My other thing is, I'm sure your agents do scheduling and try not to overlap and overload the place with, I mean, I don't expect you to get a lot of just people driving by and all of a sudden coming to your model home. So your scheduling, I'm sure you guys are gonna try to keep it to a minimum there where you don't overload your parking lot. I can't imagine you have 12 families show up to try to buy homes at the same time. You're not gonna have parking for them, so I'm just curious on how the scheduling works for your business there.
I'm not understanding the question. Are you referring to the 10 spots?
When you guys have people visit your model homes, do you usually schedule that?
Oh, not necessarily.
Okay.
A lot of it's
drive-by.
Drive-by, but a lot of it's internet-driven. You know, we do marketing on the internet, you know, so they look up the address and they'll come by. A lot of it's not appointment.
Well, when they're swinging by your model home, they're, where are your lots? Are they in this neighborhood?
They're in Sebastian Highlands.
Okay.
They're in the Sebastian Highlands
They
area.
want to see the neighborhood.
Right,
So
right.
I'm just trying to get to a point.
Right,
Okay,
and so another gentleman was referring to Addy, a house on Addy right down the road. Those are spec homes. This is a model home, you know, just to clarify his concerns. We're not just building model homes everywhere. We're building spec
filling the
homes
vacant
and
lots.
speculation to sell. Right. I mean, it's one model home, and from that, customers will come and look at colors and look at lots, and a realtor can take them to different lots throughout the neighborhood.
Okay. All right, thank you. You've answered my
I
question.
have one question. Dory, is there any possible that driveway, is that the only place it can go? Can it go in the front there where Barbara's at?
They had previously had a second driveway there, a third driveway, actually. There are rumble sticks, and there is a painted island for cut-through. So we cannot have a driveway. It's already been denied by our engineering department.
Okay.
So the Curtis, off of Curtis was the only, unless they came off that driveway of Barber and connected to the parking lot, but it goes through the drain field then. So the Curtis Drive was the additional driveway.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Any other questions? Yes, go ahead.
I have one question. In regard to landscaping, was there a landscaping plan submitted when you submitted your building plans for the site?
For the actual home or the lot?
For the actual home and the lot?
I don't think there was an actual plan.
Similarly with single-family homes, there's just a count. And there is a calculation sheet. They show what tree credits they're getting and how many additional trees they're going to be planting. They can break it down to palm trees, magnolias, oak trees. And based on the requirement, they did have that calculation did meet. Did they need a landscape plan that actually showed where they were going to be placed? No. But if you would prefer perimeter landscaping to the house to the north at Curtis, or additional landscaping around that parking lot, that can be a condition that you can add to your motion.
Thank you.
Our intentions are to put a hedge around the parking lot, at least towards Barber. And our model homes, the landscape package is very elaborate. So somebody said earlier, it's a model home. You know, we doll them up, you know, make them look really, really nice on the outside and inside.
All right, thank you.
I know in the past, some of the model home builders have stored landscaping on this lot. This is a really big lot where they can almost camouflage that entire parking lot. Did they consider that?
That's what I'm saying. If we put a row of
some screening along that parking
area.
area.
A little hedge of, I'm drawing a blank to a shrub of some sort along the edge of the parking lot. And
I think once the home's done, I mean, the home's going to be beautiful based on the conceptuals.
It will be.
But most of the arguments I'm hearing are this parking lot. So if we can screen that with maybe the landscaping that you have for your other lots that you plan on building on, plus whatever your requirements are here, just overkill it with landscaping. It will maybe help ease the pain on going on here.
Yeah, D.R. Horton definitely
Thank you.
does that for the model homes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda, staff summarization of request and their recommendation.
No, Mr. Chair, you have to close the public hearing and then go to deliberation before you can then take a vote on this first item.
Yeah, we need a vote.
I thought that follows the staff recommendation.
Staff recommends approval of the model home permit for a one-year period conditional on the following. No construction material or equipment will be stored on the property. Obtain a building permit for the model sign. No illegal flags or off-premise signs. Contractor remove the parking area when the model home permit ceases to exist. And there will be a drainage re-review of the site by stormwater staff.
Thank you. There's no notation on here of when the public hearing on that was to be closed, but since the public input has ended, that will end the public hearing and participation on this particular plan on Barber Street. Conditional use permit application. At this point, the commissioners, do you have any questions of the staff on the discussions we've had, points that you feel may need to be added in on the recommendation conditions?
No, we're fine here.
Good.
Good. Ready to vote?
Okay.
I'd like to
Any
see.
questions?
Yes, I have a question. The gentleman that's representing him said he would be considering additional landscaping on the parking area. I think that would be a condition I'd like to see, some type of screening to ease that paved area so it's a little more conducive to the surrounding area, if that's possible.
Okay. One other thing that staff mentioned, Reyes brought it up. That was the review of
Drainage review.
the drainage review. So that also should be one of the conditions that we include, I think.
It's already there, Joel.
Okay. Well, I just want to make sure we clarify that before we have a motion. Any other points? If not, someone prepared to make a motion with the conditions on the motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we accept the conditional use permit for the new model home at 1888 Barber Street with the following conditions, as listed in the staff report of no construction materials or equipment will be stored or parked on the model property. Obtain a building permit for the model sign. No illegal flags or off-premises signs. Contractor to remove parking area, model signage when the model permit expires. Drainage review, and also landscaping review.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is everyone comfortable with the motion? Okay. Please call the roll for a vote.
Mr. Hugen?
Approved.
Mr. Roth?
Yes.
Mr. Simmons?
Yes.
Mr. Motti? Mr. Alvarez?
No.
Mr. Reyes?
Yes.
Mr. Carter?
Yes.
Thank you.
Motion carries, and the conditional use permit with the 6 conditions as noted will move forward. And that will be put on our agenda appropriately for when the year is up to review it. Next item on our agenda tonight is a quasi-judicial site plan for Sebastian Depot. Could we have Attorney Stokes please read what?
Yes, approval of a site plan consisting of an existing residential structure to be used as a rental and a relocated 1,224 square foot historic train depot structure to be converted to a retail building along the required parking, stormwater, and landscaping. Approval of a waiver from the Riverfront Overlay District Regulation, Section 54-4-21.A.6b, color standards to paint the train station a bright yellow, which is not within the approved master color list. The property is at 705 Cleveland Street. And this is a quasi-judicial matter.
Do any of the commissioners have any ex parte communications on this project?
No. No.
Okay, we're clear on that. Attorney Stokes, would you swear in the applicant? Could we have the applicant or agent present the plan?
Evening. My name's Todd Smith. I'm the engineer of record for the project.
Could you, I know it's pretty straightforward, but could you spell your last name, please?
Smith. My office address is 914 20th Place in Vero Beach. Before you tonight is a site plan to basically bring, legitimize the old Sebastian train depot at the property at 705 Cleveland Street. We worked with staff on the design of trying to bring the entire 3 lots that form this parcel that also has an existing house and existing garage on it to bring it all up the code with the utilities and landscaping and drainage. What's proposed for the train station, it was Mr. Haynes, the owner, purchased it from the Historical Society down in Fort Pierce and brought it back up to Sebastian, where personally I believe it belongs. We're proposing some minor modifications to keep it in the spirit of the way the historical structure looked by basically building a perimeter deck around it. Other than that, the structure is being maintained as it was 70, 80 years ago. Other than that, I'm available for any questions regarding the engineering and the site plan.
So you're proposing that the structure would be improved from the present appearance it has now with a deck around it, is that correct?
That's correct.
What about landscaping or anything like that?
We're proposing landscaping the entire site in accordance with the Sebastian Land Development Codes. We have a separate landscape plan that's been submitted and reviewed. So additional trees and understory trees and shrubs will be planted as required by code.
Could we have the staff findings and analysis on this project, please, Dory?
Thank you, Commissioner. As Mr. Smith mentioned, City of Fort Pierce, last year the City of Sebastian got a call from the City of Fort Pierce letting us know that the train station was sitting on some property that was under code enforcement, and it was under a very a strict time limit on when we would have to come and get it. It was brought before City Council. At the time, budget considerations and that we didn't have a plan, the city let it go. Mr. Haynes was at that meeting and heard that and was very interested, and he went down and worked with the City of Fort Pierce to get that train station relocated. He was on a time limit when the train had to be taken off the property. So even though we had not submitted the site plan yet and brought that to you. He did work with us, at his risk, though, of placing that train station on the site. We worked with him on setbacks, and there was a permit pulled. The train station sat there on the flatbed truck that was moved up on. The contractor needed that truck back. He worked with our building official on getting a permit for the footings. Those footings were engineered, and we made sure that they were at least in the setback. And since that activity has happened, as you can see, the train station had sat there. They have then worked on this site plan through their project engineer to make sure they were in compliance now with all of the rest of the site plan infrastructure that we need: parking, stormwater, landscaping. That plan has been presented to you with a staff report indicating that it does meet the codes. There was just a few things I wanted to go over. Parking calculations. One of the, which was nice of Mr. Haynes, they did consider not only setbacks, but saving as many trees as they could on that site. There were some very nice old specimen oak trees. And similar to the project that we did at the Tiki Bar on the west side parking, as our code does allow, we did give them some credit for their specimen trees that they remained, six spaces. It turns out that after we calculated the parking, they did not need those spaces. They required 11 spaces. They currently have 20 with the tree credits. We felt that it was good to put this on this site plan so that it's there, and if the use for the residents is changed or moved to more of a commercial, we have that parking noted on this site plan. With that, there is a condition, though, that if any of those trees are taken down at the time that the parking is used, they would have to come up with the parking spaces via on-site parking or the parking in lieu program. On the north and the east side, they are abutting some townhouses, a residential use. They're required to have an opaque buffer. A 6-foot landscape hedge is proposed on those two perimeter sides. Traffic statement, based on the smallest side, the train station is going to be converted to a retail use, but based on the size, it still didn't generate more than 100 trips, daily trips, additional traffic. A full traffic analysis was therefore not required. But the additional trips, I believe, is 64. The information on the traffic is on the site plan under the site data. With regards to the waiver, we did give you a picture of the proposed very bright yellow FEC train stations, color that they've used historically on their buildings. It is not in our master color list. That will be for your consideration to either grant them a waiver and or require a less color yellow. We did give you some examples of some other train stations that weren't painted yellow, but in keeping with that historical nature, because it's not being used as a museum or a historical destination, if you do grant the waiver, staff would request that some sort of kiosk or information board regarding the historical nature of the building is added to the site somewhere. Staff recommends approval, and we've noted our conditions on page 8 of the staff report. A declaration of unity title so that all the lots and the properties are one. A copy of the St. John's self-certification form that's required when construction begins of the parking, and the artesian well abandonment. We spoke about the trees and the condition of a kiosk for historical information if the color waiver is granted.
Thank you for that detailed report. And Mr. Smith, if you would stay here. Commissioners, let's start with Mr. Carter this time, if you would. Any questions of staff or the agent?
No questions particularly, just maybe a statement, and that is refreshing to see that we're able to save some of our history and be able to repurpose it, if you will. But anyway, my hat's off to the owner and who wants to move ahead with this project. Thank you.
Okay. I just have one question. Have you considered another color other than this bright yellow?
The bright yellow was originally proposed because of the historical use of it on the structures, but Mr. Haynes is basically going to divert to the wisdom of the commission, has no objections should the commission want to approve the waiver yet require a more toned down yellow. whatever the board decides.
Okay. Thanks.
If I could just add one thing on that. I'm really liking the project because of what it is, and I question the color, and then I see that it is historically what they have been painted in the past.
And that's why it was proposed that way.
That's a little bit of a weight on the color. I wish there was more information on what the retail is going to be, but if it's not historical, that does put somewhat of a pressure on the color as well. But anyway, just my thoughts.
I think that's Mr. Haynes, when he proposed it, it was to try to maintain the historic spirit as much as possible, and you know, whether the board wants it toned down. Right now, we don't have a prospective renter for the building, so, but it will be a specialty retail type of business that goes in there, a boutique, something like that.
Mr. Money, any questions?
Not at this time.
Okay. Reyes.
Post lift station, has that been already permitted for this
Yes.
site?
County Utility Department has permitted it, and we're ready to actually construct it. It went before the council also as part of the grant program, because we are going to abandon the existing septic system for the house and the garage, which was kind of, I touched upon earlier. We could have come in with a site plan just designating the depot and the parking lot as a developmental area, but we really made the effort to, even though we couldn't raise those structures, we did some compensatory trade-off with drainage, so we're going to hold a higher pollution control up in the higher system for the new train depot, as well as the utilities to hook up the existing facilities as well as the new building.
A question for the city. I assume they're purchasing 9 parking in lieu of permits?
No, they don't, they're not requiring any parking in lieu.
Oh, they're not?
They're placing 11 on site there, or 14 on site, and we are giving them credit for saving the specimen trees, which our code does allow for. So they have credit for 20 parking spaces. Based on the uses, 11 is required.
I wasn't counting 14. So the gray shaded area is the parking on site, is that not correct? 1 handicap and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 parking spaces?
Yes, and then there is some credit on the site next to the existing driveway. Yes,
That's residential parking, is it not, for the residents there?
Yes, but we're looking at this as a mixed-use site plan now. They're going to unify the properties, and even though at one time it was a single-family residence, it's going to be used either for long-term rental or vacation rental, but it's a mixed-use residential and commercial site plan, and they do get credit for...
Could I park in the residence parking lot in front of their residence there if I wanted to?
Based on this site plan, yes. It could be a vacation rental. If there's more cars for the rental, they can use over there. It's a combined site plan, so yes. But this, don't forget, there's some really nice, Cleveland Street is part of the presidential street improvements. There's a lot of parking on the street there and that the city put in, the stamped parking. I can't imagine that somebody would park over the resident to use the train station, but in theory, yes.
As far as the colors go, I do notice that the other cities have not used that historic color. But I kind of like that yellow. But if we don't go with the yellow, I still think they should put a historic sign for the building stating its nature and where, you know, I think everybody's going to want to see that anyway. So I have no further questions. Thank you.
I'm fine.
I have none.
Just to further on your comments, Mr. Reyes, about the color, I think that this, some color in that family is going to be a memorable point. And as the city of Sebastian, it's going to be recognized. I know Jupiter has one exactly the same color. And that's the whole point. This will be, I know the chamber will jump on it as being a stopping point for the walking trail, which is just half a block over on Indian River Boulevard. And another reason, I think, for having a marker sign out front, or even going further with your development in the retail. I don't want to tell your business, but I see some opportunities there, but definitely having a marker out front. That would be definitely a plus. Okay. I did not have any other questions, so if that's our questions at this point, we'll ask you not to leave, and would open it open it up to public comment for those in the audience who wish to speak in favor of the project. Yes, sir. Please come forward and give your name.
Hi, my name's Peter Robinson. I'm with Laurel Homes, the developer of Laurel Reserve.
Could you spell your last name? It's a new requirement
Robinson,
now.
R-O-B-I-N-S-O-N, just like Jackie. You remember Jackie?
Okay.
Okay, I just want to speak in favor of the yellow color. That's a flagler yellow. And Henry Flagler developed this side of the state. As you remember, if he hadn't built the railroad, we wouldn't be here. And that's a known color, and it's not just in Jensen Beach. It's in Key West. He built the road. You know what Route 1 is down in Key West was done because of Flagler. If you haven't been to the Flagler Museum in Palm Beach, I would tell you, you need to go see it, because what he did is amazing. And if Sebastian has a chance to be hooked in with Henry Flagler, you couldn't ask for a better deal. Thank you.
Great. Thanks for your comments. We need to hear good things, too. Anyone else to speak in favor? Seeing none, anyone here wishing to speak in opposition to the project, the depot project? Yes, sir.
Good evening, Ben Hocker, H-O-C-K-E-R, Sebastian. One, the building appeared many months ago. The council looked at that building. They declared that there was no way of saving that building. Several of the council members went there, looked at it. That's why the city turned it down. I have a question. How's this going to comply with today's hurricane standards if we're dealing with a structure that was built in somewhere in the 30s, I'd assume? Number two, everyone I've talked to, that is not the Sebastian train station. That is the Sebastian warehouse. The train station, I was told, was used for fire practice years and years ago. Hopefully somebody here has some knowledge of that information. Why the building is askew as it is, I don't know what brought that about, but that's when the building appeared overnight with no site plan, nothing, on a trailer. The next thing, that building should not have been put on a property without a proper site plan. So we just jumped the gun somewhere, somehow, some way. Now there's just pilings under that building. Concrete pilings set at a distance in the exact spot that the trailer backed the building in. It looks kind of odd that we're going to have, if I was building a building with a storefront, I'd like people to see the storefront. Paint it green, yellow, purple, whatever, but at least to see the storefront. I don't understand why this is askew as it is, other than that's where it ended up when the guy took his trailer away. I'd like you to look into the facts, so we're not calling it the train station, it is the warehouse. And I see so many parking spaces, 5 or 6, but now we're talking saving a tree, this tree, that tree. We just gave a variance for the microbrewery across the way, which is using the same parking spaces out in front. Now, if you put 3 or 4 storefronts in there, you're going to have 2 people per storefront, the owner and a helper, worker, whatever. They'll be in those parking spaces from Dunkin' Donuts down. That's 8 parking spaces that are going to be locked up for the total day for the community. No rotation of it. It's kind of odd that, you know, all of a sudden this building appears, we're going to do all these things. Again, the color, We have a standard for the buildings. We had a big fight over color, if you recall, when we were doing the apartments up on Fleming. That was Mr. Fisher with the apartments. Had to be colors, had to meet our standards. Now, because we're gonna paint it bright yellow, we're gonna ignore or change our standard? It's been there for years. It's kind of, if I painted my house that bright yellow, the whole neighborhood would be hollering at me. Maybe they don't like yellow. Again, would you look into the fact, let's stop calling it the train station, it was a warehouse, and try and find somebody who's been here from day one that it is the warehouse? Thank you.
Thanks for your comments. Everyone sees things through different eyes. Anyone else to speak in opposition? Hearing none, then we'll close the public hearing on the project. And that would be the site plan only for the Sebastian Depot relocated train station. At this point, does the agent or the owner have any comments to make to address any of the issues presented, Mr. Smith?
Yes, just a few quick comments. The structure itself, when we submit a building permit for the any modifications to it, for the perimeter deck, for any, we're going to build ADA bathrooms inside of it. The entire structure will meet current hurricane wind loading requirements in accordance with 6th edition Florida Building Code. And I just wanted the commissioners to know, as far as the skewing of the building, the piles that it's on, there was a lot of effort and a lot of expense on Mr. Haynes' part to actually have that moved several times, because it's an existing structure. So it had very specific dimensions, and the lot was only so big. We were trying to save trees, drainage requirements, and we actually went through 4 or 5 iterations to get that angle precise. And when it was first brought in, Mr. Haynes paid a couple times for them to move it to the exact angle that we designed it at, so it would meet all the requirements and so we could accomplish all the other infrastructure that we wanted to do with it. And one last, the pilings themselves, the foundation was designed by KSM Engineering and Testing here in town, also to meet current building requirements, including hurricane wind loads. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
I kind of like this skew. I think it's going to get everybody's attention and draw a lot of business.
Staff, do you have any further comments?
I just wanted to clarify and the name of the project is Sebastian Depot. The Sebastian train stop, FEC, did consist of 2 buildings. There was a ticket building, and this was, if you want to call it warehouse, but it was the livestock building where suitcases and things were stored until the train came. It was 2 separate buildings, but this is the building from the official Sebastian Depot stop for the FEC in Sebastian, and it has been located a couple different times. We're glad it's back in Sebastian also. I did check with our building official. Yes, if this site plan is approved, the next step is for Mr. Haynes. There's 2 issues. There is a permit for the foundations. They were engineered based for load bearing and all. It is not a closed out permit because the station does have to, or the depot has to be strapped to those foundation pilings, and there is some refurbishing of the wood there that does have to continue on with that permit. But the other additional permit then will be for bathrooms, for the parking, for the hurricane requirements, for the structure itself, the bathrooms. It's a commercial building. It's going to be built for that, meeting current codes. But yes, I just wanted to explain that there is some additional building permits that's still going to be required for that use of that structure.
And that covers the exterior as well?
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
Does our building department look into trying to save some of the historic features of the building? Or is it just going to be a total remodel?
Well, that'll be up to Mr. Haynes and working with his engineer and his architect on what they do want to save, what can be salvageable. I'm sure Mr. Haynes looked into that before he made that purchase and had somebody look over that and what they're going to have to do with regards to exact historical look of the building or, what can be salvaged, what may need to be replaced.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners, we're at a point now to decide how we want to proceed on this, and this is a site plan approval with the information we've been presented at this point with the conditions that are provided to us. And that would include a deliberation about the color.
The cheerful.
And possibly.
Cheerful color.
Cheerful color. That's right. That is the name of it. Thank you. I'd forgotten that. And also the possibility of some type of historical marker. Any of the commissioners have any questions? Yes.
I have a question. The gentleman mentioned the building being brought in on the trailer. Normally, when a building is moved in, a permit is required for any moved building. When it's moved onto a site, did the applicant get a permit for the moving of that building onto the site, or was it just moved onto the site?
As I understand, there was an FDOT permit for bringing the structure up the road, and there was a plan. His contractor took care of that. In essence, was there a Sebastian permit issued? No. Because of the unique situation for the train without having the site plan at this point, he was under a very small time. I think it was literally like 10 days that they had to have the train station off the site or it was going to be demolished by the city of Fort Pierce or the property owner through code enforcement. So he was on a very short time. We were surprised that he was able to get a contractor together to put it all together and get the FDOT permits up to Sebastian. But it was placed on the site and it was on the flatbed trailer on wheels until he came in for the foundation permit. So they did not remove the wheel of the flatbed. So technically it was still movable and it was placed on the site on the flatbed trailer with wheels. He was not able to take the flatbed out without having the engineered permit for that. It was disclosed to him that it was at his own risk based on that there wasn't an approved site plan at this point, but he did come in and work with us on setbacks.
But again, my point is it was moved in without a permit that was required by the building code.
Yes and no. I mean, there's nothing that would have required a variance. That was up to it was on wheels. So it was still movable until he had the permit from the building department for the foundation.
I think you're misunderstanding what I'm asking. I believe the building code requires when you move a building onto a site, a permit is issued for that.
For the relocation of the building or to put it onto the site?
For the relocation of the building onto the site.
Okay, and there was a permit through FDOT, not through the city of Sebastian?
Not from the city of Sebastian.
Correct.
Okay.
And it was kept on wheels until there was a permit applied for the foundations?
For the foundation,
yes.
Which is now a permanent foundation, correct?
Yes, those are the permanent foundations. They haven't been strapped. It's not a closed-out permit yet, but yes, it's there. They had the permit for at least the load bearing and all. Now, it hasn't been finalized out because it hasn't been strapped according to the engineered plan?
It already has strapping on it. It has hold downs on it.
Okay, I just got this information from the building official. They had not done any final permits, final inspections on that foundation permit. But there's going to be strapping around it. You're not going to be able to see those foundations. Skirting, there's going to be skirting around the base. Any of the plumbing fixtures underneath, that's all going to be hidden. So you won't see those foundation supports when it's finished.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions?
I have one. Did the city owns this property or Mr. Feeney owns the property?
The applicant owns the property, all 4 lots, yes, Mr. Haynes.
Okay, Commissioners ready for a motion?
want to say?
Actually, what we're doing is we're looking at two main points, and then underneath the first point, which is the site plan, the 3 points, declaration of unity of title, copies of the self-certification form, and abandonment of the well.
I think we wanted to add a fourth one there for the historical marking as well.
That's correct. That would be the fourth one.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the other item is the color. There's 4 under A, and then there's a separate item, which is B. So that's where we're at. We need a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we accept the site plan for 705 Cleveland Street with the staff recommendation of the conditions of the 3 that are listed with the additional historical marking, and that we recommend the waiver of the color.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
Motion and a second. Any discussion on that? We've talked enough. Are we ready for motion? Could you poll the commission, please?
Mr. Reyes?
Yes.
Mr. Roth?
Yes.
Mr. Alvarez?
Yes.
Mr. Motti? Mr. Simmons?
Yes.
Mr. Hugan?
Yes.
Mr. Carter?
Yes.
Thank you.
Congratulations. The site plan has passed, and we wish you gentlemen luck on the project. We're looking forward to seeing that come to fruition. I think it's an excellent addition to the city of Sebastian, really. We need to have things like that is going to make an impression on people when they visit. We've got a nice strip along there, and this commission is working with council on coming up with some other ideas in that area to generate walking traffic. And that certainly will help. Thank you for your efforts. Next item on the agenda is, actually there are 2 items on the agenda.
Oh boy, it's going to be long.
And they're both relative to the same project. And in discussing this, we felt that they're both on the same subject. So rather than have comments and deliberation on both of them separately, we'd be doing some redundancy there. So what we're going to do is combine the 2 together in the form of a discussion, and then when it comes time for final review and a vote on it, we will separate the 2 of them out. And I'm going to lean on City Attorney Stokes to make sure that I do properly complete that.
Okay, this is going to be a public hearing. These are both recommendation to City Council. The first item, item 6C, is a large-scale comprehensive plan future land use amendment, a land use change from county zoning L2 and CI to city zoning LDR and CG, which is low-density residential and general commercial. The second item, which will be heard in the same public hearing, is a rezoning and a conceptual plan unit development plan, zoning designation request for PUD-R, which is a residential PUD, and the requisite approval of a conceptual PUD plan. This is the Spirit of Sebastian, located on Old Dixie Highway south of State Road 512.
Thank you. At this point, we would like to have the applicant, this is a public hearing, which is slightly different than a quasi-judicial, not that much as far as what you're seeing in the audience, but for us it's a little bit different. The first point is the applicant or agent make a presentation on the project, and this would include both of the projects. Is the applicant or agent here?
Good evening. My name's Chuck Meckling, M-E-C-H-L-I-N-G. Our business address is 5070 North A1A. Many years ago, I was in front of the city of Sebastian, and the city embraced the concept that we had at that time. At that time, we proposed the first water sewer closed drainage system in a development in Sebastian, Florida, very successful community award-winning called Collier Club. Back in front of you today to present a concept of something else that I think will be a wonderful opportunity and an asset to the city of Sebastian. As I go through this, if there's any questions that might be pertinent, please stop me and I'll be glad to answer them. First, the project is ideally located. One of the concepts of the comprehensive land use plan for the city of Sebastian is to develop infill projects. This is a tract of land that was in the county. We annexed it into the city. It is surrounded by the city of Sebastian, and it's ideally located close to 512, close to the commercial district, the riverfront district, and this would give a boost or a additional grouping of people that could use the services throughout this area. One of the things as we go through this I want to point out is this will be on county water and sewer, closed drainage system. There'll be extensive lakes in it, so as far as containing everything, and it sits on the old sand ridge. So I could tell you the day after our hurricane last summer went out on the property, wanted a drop of water because of the percolation rate. So it has some really unique advantages. It was previously a sand mine. It's been an orange grove in there, and currently there's a palm tree operation in there as well. This outlines the boundary. As you can see, there are several lakes that are already existing on the property, and those lakes will be expanded upon, and that would give us our closed drainage system within the community as well. Currently, as the Sebastian land use, it has the density of 5 units to the acre, and there's been a lot of possibly misconception with some of the density on this. When this was originally in the county, there could have been a little more than 1,000 units on this. I know that there was some controversy back and forth, and the whole concept of this in the end was to do a planned development, something that would work within the community and that would have a variety of product type, and it's all contained internally. The low density designation would allow 5 units to the acre, 910 units by the code of the city of Sebastian. What we're planning to do is a PUD, or a planned unit development, and what we're proposing is 3.2 units to the acre, or 586 units. Of that, it'd be 450 single-family homes, 130 villas, or in concept 65 units. That would be a duplex, a villa unit. This is an overlay on the existing land, and perhaps it's a little hard to see. So you can see that there's existing lakes would be expanded, and this perhaps is an easier way to see this. So we would have a variety of ingress and egress points. We would bring all our construction traffic and any sort of heavy traffic in off of Old Dixie, coming into the community through that area. Obviously, there's a connection at Del Monte and at the south end that would go out onto Schumann as well. We are in the midst of doing a traffic study, and so there's a vast amount of intersections that are going to be reviewed, and that have to be approved by the city and the city's engineer, and it'll have to go in front of the city council as well. One of the highlights of the community is there'll be a boulevard that goes through the center of it, and one of the things that'll be unique to the community is that There'll be no driveways that go out onto the main road through the community. There'll be a berm built on each side, which will be landscaped, and that it'll have a thoroughfare that'll look and represent a very greenbelt environment. In this, there's also a 6-foot wide sidewalk so that people can either ride bikes or walk or those sort of activities. Obviously, within each pod section, there'll be sidewalks, recreation park areas, all the requirements that the city will have us do. I'll give you a representation of the product that would be built in there. And then in these sections, this is what we've done in other developments. We do a cabana and pool area, park recreation, and we do those in the village or pod sections so that everybody has their own area. Then there's also a major recreation area as well. There is a community section that'll be set aside to do community gardens and other sport activities that be more of an outside the area or outside sort of activity. As well within the community, and we're going to exceed all the requirements that the city is looking to have as far as recreational facilities and set-asides for that. And that gives a brief overview of the project. If there's any questions that you might have, I'd be glad to answer. Our engineer is here tonight as well, so if there's any more technical questions, John Blum with Carter and Associates could answer those as well.
Okay, thank you. Do any of the, I don't want to jump ahead here. I think we should have the staff findings and analysis at this point. That will fill in any of the missing links and perhaps save some questions and time.
Thank you, Chairman. I think Mr. Meckling has given you a good overview of the conceptual plan, which is a part of your approval tonight. But this is basically, the property has been formally and officially annexed in by the City of Sebastian, the City Council. And they have, in the interim, they still have their county land use and zoning. What is before you tonight is their request for the land use, to remove it from the county land use, to give it a city land use of low-density residential, and these, I think it's about 2.5 acres along Old Dixie of a commercial general land use. Also, the request is for rezoning, to give it a zoning based on that land use. They're requesting a PUDR, and that request for that zoning, the code requires a conceptual plan of what they're going to do for that subdivision. At this point, it can be negotiated if you wish to discuss, but the setbacks, lot sizes, that you'll probably see more detailed on the preliminary plat. With this conceptual plan. Yes, if it's changed significantly, it would have to come back before you, but say after review of the preliminary plat by the fire department, the roads may be too long or the cul-de-sacs, there could be some minor modifications to this conceptual plan. What the plan is showing you, though, is that it is meeting what the PUD zoning requests. It has to have 50% of the PUD has to be open space. There is a requirement for recreational areas, and that is the conceptual plan. They have broken down that information for you to see that it is going to meet those requirements. With regards to the land use, and as the process is you're going to be making a recommendation to City Council. This will go then to City Council. After they have their first hearing, it is sent up, the land use request is sent up to the state of Florida, the Department of Economic Opportunity, and they will review it. Within 30 days, they are to send us their comments, and then it will go back to City Council. In the meantime, the developer will probably be working on more of their detailed plans, finalizing their environmental report. For each pod, we'll be requiring a full environmental analysis, tortoises, scrub jays, any of the protected species, wetlands, a full traffic analysis for each of those pods as they come in. As I understand, that's how the subdivision will be developed, phase/pod at a time. And each one of those pods will have to stand alone with compliance to our subdivision requirements. But tonight, again, the request is just to give it a land use and the zoning and the conceptual plan. And our staff report, both of them, state what is required in the code. There are some, with these requests, on the land use to consider land use compatibility. Will adequate public facilities be able to be brought to this subdivision, which, yes, it is in the urban service boundary area. Indian River County Utilities has verified that they will be able to support waste management system and a water system. Orderly development, economic effect, and you have the analysis that they have submitted to you. The zoning staff report also mentions things in the code that should be considered, the levels of service regarding traffic, water, wastewater, stormwater, compliance with the comp plan, and then we also listed the items in the code that the conceptual plan is to show, which we have verified that it does. Staff recommends approval. I think the one thing that we had as a condition, the conceptual plan does show some perimeter buffers. It does state 10 to 25 feet landscape buffer. We would just ask that a condition be made that where those buffers are abutting directly with residential properties, that it is a full 25 feet wide, unless that residential is buffered by a drainage easement. So I believe it was South Moon Under subdivision, and there may be some properties to the south along Manley Avenue where it would actually be abutting back to back with residential properties, and we would request the buffer at that point be 25 feet.
Thank you for that very detailed report. Cleared up a lot of questions, I'm sure. At this point, do any of the commissioners have any questions of the applicant who's been standing here waiting for us to ask questions, and I appreciate your staying there. Any of the commissioners have questions? Let's start with Mr. Simmons.
I do have a question. Hopefully it would be appropriate. Who are the principals in Ridgewood Sebastian LLC?
Robert Votal would be the managing partner, and he's here tonight. Karen Meckling is a principal in it. Jim Adams is a principal in it. We're all local people. We're all the group that was involved with developing Collier Club. We've been around the Sebastian market, and the one thing I think that people can say is we've done what we said, and we will do that in this situation.
Thank you.
It's no out of town. And I want to say that the Brown family, which has owned this land for a very, very long time, it is a collective effort with the family. Mr. Brown had passed away, the patriarch of the family, and they wanted to be able to do something with the land that would have some living legacy that they could be proud of. So the family itself has been extremely involved as we've gone through this process. They're a great group of individuals, and we think that we have something here that, although it may take 10 years to build this out, as did Collier Club, it's not a rush situation, but it's getting the job done right. Thank you.
Mr. Alvarez? No. Yes?
When I was looking at the property near the southwest corner up against Laurel Reserve Drive there, is there a existing wetland area there?
Yes, sir. And one of the concepts that we're going to do with this is, if you've noticed that we went around all the wetland area, one of the design concepts in our outfall situation for drainage is that we will actually go through the wetland area that the county owns. What this will do is create a flushing effect. In that flushing effect, it will enhance that wetland area, which now has a bit of a stagnant situation. So it will be engineered and designed so that when we have a storm situation and there's any outfall that takes place, it would actually flush those wetlands, revitalize them, and be an asset to that whole ecosystem that's in there.
So it has been declared a wetland?
Yes, sir.
You mentioned the Votals have done a lot of work in the area. Is there any other developments in the areas that you have incomplete?
We're in the process of finishing Sandcrest, which is near the post office. Well, just to hop and skip from here. So we're in the process. We were permitted for that a little while back, and we're on track with what we were doing in there.
Do you have any outlook as to where you're planning on, what pod you're planning on putting your villas and your duplex?
We would put those down closer to the east of the property line. We also have looked into using impact glass in these structures for sound deadening, and it has a lot of other attributes that are a positive, but that would be down in that section that would be off of Old Dixie in concept.
Pod 4?
Yes.
No, not right now, thank you.
I'm not rushing you.
Yeah, you were.
Sorry. Mr. Carter, any questions?
No questions at this point.
Mr. Hugan?
Yes, I have a couple questions for you. You made a statement that one of the ingress and egress is going to exit onto Dixie Highway for construction. Is that going to remain after the construction is done?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so there'll be three ways in to that property then?
Yes, sir.
Okay. The other question I have is about the lakes. Are those lakes, are they sloped in or are they cut straight down?
They're sloped, sir, and they would have to meet all the current safety requirements on a slope situation, but they are sloped in.
Okay. That's it.
That brought up a question. Are you planning on mining any more fill out of these lakes?
We would, if we're going to be doing anything of that nature, we would get everything permitted, but what we would be doing, as was discussed, is we're not much about building concrete walls around our communities. We're more of moving dirt and using landscaping. So what we would undoubtedly be doing is moving, some material within the project from spot to spot to be utilized for the internal use of the community. One of the things that's been unique about this tract of land is that actually in the time that it was sand mined, when you come in, the elevation slopes down. So as you surround the community on many sides of it, it already has an earthen barrier, if you will, which will then get landscaped. So it creates a very unique environment. It truly does. And if I may, I'd like to read into the record, we've been meeting with folks to try and discuss what we're doing. We had an email come in, and the city has records of it, but it was sent to Ms. Frazier and Bosworth, and it's from Michael Float, who's president of the South Moon Under Property Owners Association, and it was myself and vice president of the association who met with Chuck Meckling and reviewed the future plans for the Spirit of Sebastian community. We're thrilled to know that this community will be neighboring ours and that Chuck is at the helm. I've known Chuck Meckling for 15 years and have always observed a high degree of quality and planning in all the communities he has been a part of. Speaking for South Moon Under, we endorse the Spirit of Sebastian. Sincerely, Michael Float, President, South Moon Under. And I think that's possibly in your record packet as well.
Commissioners, I'm sorry, there was a lot of information to give you. I did wanted to verify that, yes, we did receive that letter of support from that subdivision, adjacent subdivision.
And that's right adjacent, correct?
Yes, sir.
I have a question. Has the city put in their thought about the impact that this is going to have as far as police, water, all these other city employees that, is going to be part of this?
So,
have we made any?
As part of your packet, there was an analysis, a fiscal analysis. They have broken down, I know there's a sheet in there that shows, as each house is built, how much recreational impact fee will be collected by the city, a stormwater fee that will be collected annually, taxes that will be collected. This is going to be a private subdivision, so it's going to be a private stormwater system, private roads, so there isn't going to be, besides police protection, most of the upkeep of the subdivision will be from the subdivision and their yearly annual fees, the deed restricted. That is in your analysis. They have already verified with Indian River County based on the gallons per day that is projected for the subdivision that they have the capacity for both water and wastewater. With regards to traffic, and I wrote that down because I did want to go over it, they have done a cursory traffic analysis at this point on how many trips is going to be generated from complete build-out. Don't forget, this is going to be about a 10-year project, and there are 5 pods. The first couple of pods are projected to go out of Del Monte and Old Dixie. By the time the last pod, or third or fourth pod, I think Chuck can verify this, they'll be opening the Bailey Drive exit. They have already begun, though, their full traffic analysis, which we sat down and we reviewed with them on projected streets that traffic is going to go down. On Del Monte to South Easy, on Old Dixie, Bailey Drive.
Del Monte's going to be really,
And it ripple effects out to the intersections that are going to be reviewed and how much traffic will be generated and added to those intersections and streets. And based on those figures that will come back, there may have to be some off-site improvements to those roads. Maybe there's a turn lane on Easy Street into their subdivision, their entrance. The intersection, the timing may need to be adjusted at a 512 intersection. So there's a lot of information that's still going to be reviewed from the full traffic analysis. And don't forget, this is just the conceptual. So at preliminary plat, a lot more details will be presented for you, and we'll have more information on exactly where that traffic is going to be dispersed.
Any indications on Old Dixie Highway? It kind of goes from 2 lanes down to 1 right in a critical area there.
Our project, it's a 2-lane just past our project. We would propose that we come out of the project and it'd be a left turn only. As you know, that going to the right or to the south is not a improved highway situation. So we would do whatever improvements that we would need to go from that exit of the community to the north out to 512. One of the, and obviously both of those, ingress and egress, that point will be, improved, because obviously the accessibility for the homeowners and the people that live there to go to the functions in the park and the river district and to enjoy the benefit of what businesses are there, it becomes, a key ingress and egress. One of the things too that might be of interest is this will be the first community in Sebastian that will have natural gas. We have an agreement that is in place with the gas supplier, and they will bring a spur into this community. It will also benefit the people that are along Old Dixie, because they will leave spurs to the industrial park and the other businesses in there who have been requesting natural gas but have not been able to come up with footing the bill to run the line into their facility. So there will be a spur that will come down off of 512 on Old Dixie. We will take care of getting installed with our agreement with the natural gas, Florida gas providers. And so I think that that's a bit of another amenity excitement that is a positive within the community also.
Mr. Monty, did you have questions?
I have one question. In looking at the annex request, you listed as 550 single-family units and 140 duplex, but you stated 65 duplex.
I guess there's 2 requests. So the first one would be in keeping with the concept of the 5 units to the acre, the low density in the city of Sebastian. Right behind that is our request to be a planned unit development. So we're lowering the number of units that we were going to actually build, and that would be what we propose to do here with the Spirit of Sebastian project. It would be the 456 single family and the 130 villa or 65 units. So we're not doing the larger number. We're doing the decreased number, which is 3.2 units to the acre in concept.
Exactly how many duplexes are there? How many units does that consist of?
There's 130 units or 65 buildings.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other commissioners' questions? Okay, thank you. We'll move forward then with any members in the audience who wish to speak in favor of the project.
Ben Hocker, City of Sebastian, Hockeer. I believe this was really just for taking a zoning from the county zoning to the city zoning. I didn't see site plans that are approvable. These are just guessing of what might go, what might be there, correct?
That's correct, that follows.
So we're just really voting here to change the zoning
Future land use.
as the land use. I see other people have been bringing up other things on the board here. I called the county. I wanted to find out who really has control of Old Dixie Highway. And Chuck just mentioned that they're going to do some in and out changes onto the 2-lane portion of it. Well, I didn't get a call back from the county what we actually control of Old Dixie, which will cost the city the renovation, the changes to the road, the addition, et cetera, et cetera. That's not in their site plan or what they intend to do. I also took a ride down Del Monte. You got power line going there. So you've got a major FP&L right-of-way going through there. I don't know if that has any bearing on it. And I don't know where the third exit's going to be, looking at your plans. But again, like I said, I'm not against changing of the zoning. And I figured that's what this meeting was about. Thank you.
That's correct. Thank you. Anyone else to speak in favor of the project? Seeing none, anyone here in the audience have comments in opposition to the project?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Damian Gilliams, 1623 US 1. You know, if Mr. Brown wants to leave a legacy in our community, then he really needs to have his people, obviously he's passed away, but he should be leaving a legacy of a good spirit, not directing all this traffic towards Del Monte. And that's the bottom line. I've got a copy of your layout of your PUDs, 5 of them. And when you look at this, by the way, if South Moon Under wants to endorse this, why don't we run the traffic through South Moon Under? They like it. They like the plan. You know for sure that every one of those homeowners, their $500,000 homes, they will be here tonight saying, no way. This is about the big developer versus the little guy. And the little guy cannot organize and get an attorney, show up here tonight and fight this. It's up to this board to do the right thing. Now, I understand that they're looking at future land use and you're looking at zoning tonight. I'm aware of that. And that's what we really need to focus on, because they got past the city council on the annexation without proper feasibility, financial studies, and the impact to this community. So let's start with the future land use. When you have South Moon Under and you have the Sebastian Highlands to the west, they're looking to do low-density residential. And that's 5 units approximately per acre. Why not do very low density? That's the next step below. Low density is very low density. It's 3 units per acre. If you're going to direct all this traffic away from Old Dixie Highway so they can avoid paying double laning Old Dixie Highway like most developers want to do, they don't want to spend money with improvements. They're going to push it in an area where nobody will fight them and they won't organize. So, you're considering land for future land use. Go with the very low density. Let there be a compromise. If you're going to direct this traffic to Del Monte, and you're not going to direct it out towards where it needs to go, Old Dixie Highway, they got 3 parcels that you can egress and ingress for this project, but they chose to go west. Why not go east? They've already given access over here for their commercial onto Old Dixie. They have their multifamily duplexes right here in Pod 4. There's access right there. Why run it to Bailey when you can run this other parcel, Pod 5, and keep everybody happy? It's a win-win. But they don't want to pave that big, long, Old Dixie Highway. When you look at the land use amendment, you also have to look at the zoning. South Moon Under is RS20, because those are half-acre homes. They're nice. Why don't we do RS20 for the people, for this development, so that this way they have to build less homes per acre. Here they're going through the PUD, the Planned Unit Development, because they can get 10 pounds of sand in a 5-pound bag. That's what it comes down to. It's about the money. It's about profit. It's about making money. Sebastian Highlands is RS20, which abuts this property. I don't see RS20 as a proposal in this document here. So, Mr. Chairman, there's no hurry to push this thing through. There's a lot of unanswered questions. Transportation by the developers, engineers, that's not representing the people of this community. That's not fair. We should have, and by the way, Mr. Chairman, we don't have, that I'm aware of, and correct me if I'm mistaken, and maybe they hired a new engineer, but the city of Sebastian does not have a licensed engineer that I'm aware of. Can you verify that for me?
I can verify that the work is properly done.
I'm sorry?
I can verify the work is properly done.
But it's not done by a licensed engineer, correct?
Oh, they have to be licensed to do the work.
Okay, can you tell me who the licensed engineers of record for the city?
It's not my job to know that.
Then I rest my case. Can you want to direct it to your staff and ask them?
The
The city has licensed consultants that do work for them.
The licensed engineer that did this plan is with Carter and Associates, John Blum, and we have licensed engineers under a service agreement that review it according to city codes.
That's correct. Under the service agreement, under the code. Did they review this? No. The engineer of record is for Carter and Associates. That's for the developer. That's my point. There's nobody representing.
The point is there are city codes that they have to meet, and they will, or it won't be passed. Simple.
No, but it's not just about the codes. You're deciding future land use, and you're deciding
Well, that's
zoning.
correct.
But that's correct. So if the abutting property is X zoning, why would you give them more and not at least equal or less when you're directing all the traffic into somebody else's community? Don't you think that you should be considerate?
Sebastian is a mixed-use community. Everywhere you look, there are different types of zoning that butt up against other types of zoning.
Mr. Chairman, let's be
It happens
specific.
all over.
Let's be specific. I'm not talking
We
about.
don't need to be
I'm not talking
specific.
about mixed-use zoning throughout the community. I'm talking what's abutting this property and what's fair to those property owners. What you're doing is you're directing all this traffic to Del Monte, and it's going to be a health, safety issue. It's not fair to those people who bought those homes that they have to deal with all this traffic that you're directing, when in essence, you have this big road down here on Old Dixie Highway.
Okay, thank you. You've made your point. We appreciate it, and we've
So what was the point that I made, Mr. Chairman?
You made your point that you don't like the plan, and you don't
What kind of
like the
zoning am I
traffic
recommending?
plan.
What kind of zoning am I recommending, Mr. Chairman?
It's
Very
irrelevant.
low density.
That's correct.
That's correct.
So you've made your point. I
And that's
appreciate
on the
it,
comp
and I'm
plan.
going to ask you to leave others an opportunity to speak. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate your time. Thank you for doing such good work for our community. We appreciate your service. Thank you.
Someone else speak in opposition? With a different point, we don't want to be belaboring the same points, and that's, I said that earlier. As a matter of fact, staff, could I ask, pardon?
Is that in the record? I think you can do this.
Ma'am,
Who is this from and what is it for?
hold on.
City Attorney
I mean,
Stokes,
you know,
is this permissible?
Whatever, this is not quasi judicial, so if you can take those, you can look at them, you cannot look at them. It's no different than Mr. Gilliam holding up something to show you. They give you individual ones. They should have asked first and handed them to the clerk or to myself to hand out, but I'm sure that won't happen again, so.
Do you have a
go ahead.
copy? I'm sorry to be making an issue of it, but we just want to make sure it's...
You've got them, you can look at them or not look at them, that's up to you, but there's nothing inappropriate about it.
Before you begin, sir, I question of the commission, do we want to, at this point, put a limitation on time?
Yeah, what's the normal limitation, 5 minutes?
There is none. It's up to us to decide, and...
I give them 5 minutes.
I don't want to keep going.
My opinion, I think you're handling it fine.
Okay, all right, we'll proceed then. I'm sorry. We're just doing a little house cleaning here, or keeping, let's put it that way.
Yes, sir, Mr. Roth.
Go ahead, please.
My name is John Norris, 566 Cross Creek Circle. I know that's not necessary here.
And you're spelling your name, please?
Norris, November, Oscar, Romeo, India, Sierra. Norris.
Okay.
Robert and I, Colonel Robert, we're both West Point engineers, so we have a little bit of lack of knowledge about some of this. And I'm not going to speak on the same point, or I'm not as polished as Damien as he's here speaking frequently. I'd like to start out with, there's no animus here. And I'm going to invoke the Six Grouches and Paul Kruger. Mr. Meckling and his wife and Mr. Boyd are all gentlemen. They called me up and explained to me the procedure and process and when it's going to happen. They've had integrity throughout the entire proceeding, and we were here present at the city council meeting. But I have a little bit different concept of this property involving the zoning of it. And I'm going to invoke the original spirit of Sebastian. And I'm going to bring up a request about a land trust because we're going to have a financial issue come up a little bit later. But our alternative proposal is going to involve no additional police, no fire, no schools, and it's going to be a win-win for the overall concept of this city. And I can tell you from my heart, I love this city. I've had property here since 1969 and 70 in the Army. Bob's a career person here, and I got him to move here from Boulder, Colorado. So part of this idea is based upon Boulder's concept of the Greenway Trail and Park. And my concept here is, and I'm going to present it, it's going to be the Sand Mine Park Conservation Area and Greenway Trail. If we got this 187 acres through a trust, Bob, would you put it up on the thing? I can connect the park system with the existing 10-year plan, which is, again, you have an excellent director in the city. They allowed me to look at the 10-year concept plan, which proposed to the county for a greenway. But the linchpin is this particular section of land. This 187 acres is the connection between walking along Indian River Drive and at the produce stand, cutting across. And if you look at your maps in front of you, and I apologize, I didn't know the procedure. Again, I'm not as polished as Damien and Chuck. We will come across right here from Indian River Drive into the parcel, then connects up across the open parcel to behind the Laurel Reserve, and then we're going to go north to an existing greenway trail that's a proposed 10-year proposal to the county. We're going to go north along this greenway portion here, come up to Sebastian Boulevard behind the industrial area. You knock down an old house there, so there's an open development there, which is part of the existing greenway path. Come across and go behind the elementary school, along next to the post office, and come out right behind here to the main building. And then, of course, once we're here, we connect into this large tract all around here. You now have a water easement you just made at the end of Walmart and Jalisco, which will connect back down to the Indian River Lagoon, which will produce a Greenwell walking trail of 8 to 10 miles and an oval path all through the center of the city. And in addition, you can see this part of the Greenway path right here will connect into the Adams Tract. And there are numerous paths and hiking trails in there. So there's a opportunity here for this city to meet the original Paul Kruger and Six Grouches concept of a Greenway trail area through the center of the city. And in a final addition, I got you into this area behind City Hall, through the airport, you connect there to Roslyn Road. And from there, it would be easily run with no lights to connect onto the Central Railway Trail and go all the way to Felsmer, which will add a total of there and back 14 more miles to biking and hiking to the city. This would definitely set the concept that this city is interested in and still loves the spirit of Sebastian, having a Greenway center trail and additional parks for this area. I do not want these people to lose any money, not one penny on this. I want to create a land trust on the concept of Indian River County Land Trust, the Sebastian Land Trust, and we will raise money to promote this concept and put Sebastian, it's getting on the map now with the Central Railway pathway across, as we all know now, across I-95, but it'll put us definitely on the map.
Excuse me.
Go ahead, yes, sir.
I'm going to ask a procedural question. Is this really to the point of what we can hear and decide tonight because we have a different proposal on our agenda?
No, you cannot vote for any alternative proposals. You can, vote yes or no to what's before you, what has been put before you in this application. So if you want to listen to alternatives and in your mind think it's a better alternative, so you're going to vote no on this, well, that's an individual choice. But at this point, it's just, do you want to recommend what the applicant brought to the city council or not?
Well, that's what's on the agenda.
Right.
We're going off here on this.
Yeah, I somehow feel that we're getting off the agenda because this really wasn't on it, and it's taking time away from the other folks who are standing back here waiting to address the issue. And I understand what you're saying, but on the same hand, it's not on our agenda to look at it. I know that it's possible that it would take away from what you want to do, but I would suggest your next option would be to go to the city council meeting when this comes up at that point and present it there.
Okay, we will do that, sir. But I'm also speaking on behalf of Colonel Werner, Jennifer, possibly Irene, and I'm speaking on behalf of about 5 or 6 people. So I'm not trying to take the council's time here out of the ordinary. Thank you for listening. I think it's a legitimate alternate proposal, and per Damien's request, I think this should be put off at this point for more input as to the concept. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. We have the concept of what you're speaking about, and we will put it under advisement for sure.
Thank you, Mr. Roth.
Okay. Is there anyone else here to speak in opposition that's on a different point than what we've already discussed?
Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission, Ray Fries, F-R-I-E-S, 171 Del Monte Road, here in Sebastian. My wife and I have lived here since 2001. We moved to that location. Beautiful city, small town atmosphere, safe, very, very safe, and we love it for those reasons. Now we're coming into a situation that could be considered urban sprawl in our neighborhood. We're on Del Monte, where they want to shove possibly 1,700 people through our neck of the woods, bringing traffic, making it difficult. And it's already difficult now to go for a walk on the streets and be safe. It's difficult now to ride a bicycle on the streets, let alone bring in these additional folks that are going to be driving. We have a concern for that. We have a concern for safety. We have a concern for the flood zone. That property is a flood zone. I just looked on the webpage for the city, said it's a flood zone. And what's that going to do? That's going to push all the water towards the people that are on Balboa and on Arbor Street. It's going to be a big problem for them. Who's paying for the road improvements? We're going to bring it on to Damani, and at the intersection of Damani and South Windboro, they're not going to go right or go north to get onto 512 if they want to go out towards 95. They're going to continue on Damani to go to Easy Street, go to that red light, and you therefore bypass all of that traffic where you have the school zones and the police, and nobody wants to go through that every day if you can avoid it. You learn those little tricks when you live in the neighborhood. Everybody's going to be doing that. So take a look at Delmonte Road in that section, going to Easy Street. Water damage, potholes. It's a one-lane road basically when you have all of the people out there with the lawn mowing equipment. There's going to be a problem. And then the big concern too, why wasn't this all pushed out towards Old Dixie? They had 2 points of entrance and exit, according to the maps, that have been there all along. Farm entrance and a main street. Why don't they want to do that? Would they be the ones responsible for paying for the upgrades to Old Dixie? Is that why they don't want to pay that money? They want to force this through a residential area? I want you to consider these facts when you go to vote, when you make your decisions. Think of it as your house. Think of it as your neighborhood. Think of the consequences when we have all these houses coming in. 162 houses in the first year and a half coming up, 2019. It's a lot of houses, a lot of dirt flying in the air, a lot of traffic. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fries. I appreciate your comments.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Dr. Patricia A. Pizzullo. I live at 438 Georgia Boulevard here in Sebastian.
Could you, I'm sorry, could you spell your last name for us, please?
I know, it's not Smith, I know that. Okay. P as in Peter, E, Z, Z, U, L, L, O.
Thank you.
I had spoken to the town council with some of my concerns a few weeks back, and I felt that there wasn't enough data presented or available at that time for them to make a decision, and I felt that they were really moving towards an a priori decision, which really concerned and worried me. Well, now when I see the information that was given out as the data that upon which they made their decision, and each one of them sat and smiled at me and said, we know, we're going to get it, we're going to do it. I was dismayed to see that some of the information presented is not complete. Much of it will be conducted, will be done, will be analyzed, which means we still don't have the solid data that is needed to make the informed decision that you folks are asked to make. And I feel very uncomfortable about that, and I think you also should feel uncomfortable about that. The other piece that bothers me is the educational component is left out completely. Yes, we've heard about the traffic congestion. That is a problem. We've heard about the studies that will be done that will look at the environment that aren't done. That is a problem. We've looked at the density and number of units, and that also is a problem. One of their graphs is telling us that there's over 5,000 daily trips coming out of that unit. That's quite a bit. That would certainly mar the neighborhoods that it is going through. And that comes from a very good source. It comes from the ITE's Trip Generation Manual, the 10th edition, which is the most current. However, that edition also asks that a local analysis be done. I don't think that has been done. It hasn't been presented, and I haven't heard anyone say that they were going to do a local analysis. So on that basis, folks, I would like to ask you to not approve this and move it forward. I would like to ask you to stop it here and say, no, we need other information. We need more data, and we need more solid data and more complete data. In addition, I would like us to be able to consider what's called class inclusion and class exclusion. We're looking at home development in an area, that's class inclusion. What about exclusion? What are the other types of development that that piece of land could sustain that would also benefit the community, perhaps with less disturbance to the homeowners and the homes that are already there? So I'd like you to keep that in mind as you deliberate, and I think those are important pieces. Thank you very much,
Well,
folks.
one thing, just to reassure you, there are other steps that need to be taken on this project before it's final. So be aware of that, okay?
Okay, yes, all right. But
thank you for your input.
But the facts have to be here as you go along and approve them. You're going to get caught. You know, you could hit a point where it said, oh my God, we approved it up to now and we didn't even have this information.
No,
now we've got to do
this commission will
a
not
zig
be
and a
caught.
zag.
We won't be caught. We'll
Okay.
have the data.
Well, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
You're welcome.
Good evening. My name is Irene Ferriola. It's F like Fred, ERRAIUOLO. I live at 1525 Crowberry Lane in Sebastian. Excuse me. Oh, sorry. And spell it again. F like Fred, ERRAIUOLO. You're welcome. I just recently found out about this an hour before this meeting. I didn't even get any type of correspondence in the mail. I do love Sebastian. My parents lived here for 20 years. I've been here since 2008. I came here because of their love of Sebastian, and I just want to say that residents come to Sebastian to enjoy the natural beauty of Florida, that Florida has to offer. This property is extremely important and invaluable to Sebastian because it is representative of what our city was founded upon. And if you look up on the wall, gentlemen, City of Sebastian, home of Pelican Island. If development continues the way it is, this will no longer be the home of Pelican Island. And Pelican Island would not exist if we did not protect that as well. I also want to say that, you know, the city was founded on Old Florida to keep the integrity of Sebastian and continue being the home of Pelican Island. Then we need to keep as much wildland as possible. This can only be made possible with our cooperation, with your cooperation, with all the residents being concerned, being well informed, which brought to my attention that not very many people were informed about what was going on here. And I think it's very important that Sebastian needs to be a model of the future generations that are going to be coming here to Sebastian in preserving what Florida used to be. And I also do support the gentleman's alternative plan. I think that is quite remarkable plan that he has going, and I think it's very fair. And I think it would be a great thing for us to put us on the map as somebody that's really looking as more of a green future town, not a big city, not something that's going down the lane of Fort Lauderdale. And I come from Fort Lauderdale, and I grew up there, and I can tell you we had all the same beautiful land and everything that was up here, and it's all gone now. And I can tell you right now, I mean, we have $3 stores already that's been built here that's unnecessary. And I'd really appreciate your cooperation because I know all of us love Sebastian, and that's what brings people here. And it should be kept to a limit. Not everybody should be allowed in Sebastian. It should be something exclusive for those of us that really appreciate Florida and what it has to offer.
We need to be careful on that comment.
What?
There are property rights with zoning.
Oh, yeah, no, I understand that. I don't feel as though we need to be turned into another city that's going to be going into sky rises. because that's
Right.
where Fort Lauderdale is now headed.
Well, thank you very much for your comments. We
You're welcome.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Good evening, gentlemen. My name is Henry Gigliotti. It's Gigliotti. I live at 774 South Easy Street in Collier Creek Estates. I'll go on record as opposing this plan as I see it here, with only 2 exits. I foresee property on Del Monte turning south on Easy Street, going through Collier Creek Estates to get to Route 66, going down to Vero Beach. It's a residential neighborhood. When I purchased that, I did not plan on having a major thoroughfare for traffic going to Vero Beach. I think I would like to see some other alternative exits from this subdivision. At the present time, I don't see how all that traffic in that subdivision can get out of 2 exits. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your viewpoints. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. That concludes, I'm sorry, we had an opportunity and we could go on forever.
For,
Pardon?
when I was here saying I'm for.
Oh, you're changing your opinion now?
No, I have a question coming on it. Ben Hocker, City of Sebastian, Hocker. It seems everybody's discussing the amount of homes that are going to go on these properties. Now, it's 183 acres. Have the calculations for the homes per acre taken into account all of the roadway as non-buildable, the right-of-ways, the park area, the pondage? What is the actual buildable square acres? And maybe they have the answer. But I hear different numbers for how many homes, how many this. Just looking for a real true answer.
With a planned unit development, that different areas have different requirements as far as size of home, which then limits the quantity of homes in that area. I did not, personally, I did not add them up. Do you have any of that information, Dory?
Well, one of the PUD requirements is that 50% must remain open space. So if you have 182 acres, there's 91 acres that are buildable. And with that, they have to keep the density of their land use, which could be 5 units per acre. They're proposing 3.2. If you remember that this property has been annexed in, we have to give it a land use and a zoning. If it's remained in the county, density is 6 units per acre. So if they had remained in the county, most likely some of that traffic would still be coming through our roads at a much higher density. But they are proposing, so 91 acres can be developed at 5 units per acre. They're proposing 3.2. And with the preliminary plan, you will see more of the lot sizes and requested setbacks with that part of the process.
Mm-hmm.
Did I hear 50% of the land had to be open land?
Correct.
Yes.
Which means
open space,
parks, ponds, roads, right-of-ways.
Setbacks, a part of the calculation is each lot is required to have, per our code, 30% open space. I believe on one of their conceptual plan graphs, they're proposing 40% of each lot will be open space. That counts towards that 50%. And then there's a certain amount of recreation area, almost 7 acres,
But again,
I believe.
my real question was, how many actual buildable acres are there at 3.2 homes, I believe you could come up with, what they said. I didn't get that number yet. I don't know how to get it. Maybe somebody does.
180. No? No, do something.
Good evening.
Yes, sir.
Ronald Adamson, Adamson, 564 Balboa Street, Sebastian. I just had a few small things here. When we was asked about the traffic coming out onto Old Dixie and going to the right where the road narrows down to a single lane, that I believe they said they'd put up a sign that said left turn only. I don't think that's really legal to do that, isn't it? Because that's open to anybody to use that Old Dixie. And does anybody have any idea what the plans are for that railroad crossing down there, just below where the project is, that traffic from their unit's going to be flowing onto?
There are several crossings, I believe 5 in Sebastian, that our city engineer in the past worked on it, and they're still not answered, and Brightline is still pushing forward. So no, the short answer is we have no idea, and we can't control it.
Because that's going to increase traffic going across that crossing there behind Fisher's Place. And there's no arms, there's no safety devices, there's no arms, no alarms or anything on that crossing. And the other...
I think there are arms on that crossing.
I don't believe so.
I thought there was. I went across.
There may be, but I've never seen them. I've never seen them down. So.
Mr. Chair, if we could get back to this is an issue of comprehensive plan designation, future land use, and zoning classification.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's what we're dealing with.
Right.
Let's stay focused.
I would just, if I can just say one more thing about the terrain, the crossings and all, that I'm wondering if the owners of the project are going to have to disclose to potential buyers that the new train service that's going to be coming through is going to add another 32 trips per day, they're saying, to the already 12 or 14 trips that Dakota is going through there now.
I appreciate that.
And I'm wondering that's going to be disclosed.
We can't control that, and that's very arbitrary. We're not in a position to control any of that. So thank you very much for your comments. I understand your concern, and there's been a lot of points mentioned tonight. We'll add yours with the rest of them and come up with a recommendation tonight.
When will the next public hearing be on it? Anyone know?
Let's see, this is a public hearing. This will go to,
Tentatively, is City Council on the 23rd.
Yeah. And when would be the conceivable date when that meeting might be?
The 23rd, and again, everybody that's received letters will receive letters of that public hearing. You will always be notified when there is a public hearing for this. I know one lady was concerned that she didn't receive a letter. Over 300 letters went out regarding this public hearing to surrounding property owners. We went above and beyond the 300-foot radius from the property. I think we went to 450, and we sent out 300 letters regarding all, and that same list will be sent letters for any public hearing, whether it's before you or City Council.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Adamson. Any others? I don't see anyone jumping up to say anything. That will close the public hearing on both of those matters, the comprehensive plan future use amendment and the planned unit development for that Spirit of Sebastian project. At this point, I believe, Attorney Stokes, what we need to do is split these two back up in our deliberations so that we're clear as we address them.
That's correct.
From both the staff and the commission.
Absolutely. We'll go to 6C first, which would be the land use change from L2 and CI county zoning to LDR and CG. And this is for the comprehensive plan amendment.
Okay, this has already been annexed to the city of Sebastian, and
Yes.
our task is to determine if that zoning is appropriate. And
Well,
make a
future land use.
recommendation to the city council for a final decision.
Right, but this is land use, not zoning, but this is, yes.
Yes. Any questions by the commissioners? Yes, Mr. Hugan.
Yeah, I have one. One of the speakers brought up pushing traffic onto or Old Dixie Highway, and my question is maybe for the staff, if they do push the traffic to Dixie, who's going to pay for the upgrades to Dixie? Is that going to be on the developer? Or we don't?
Old Dixie Highway is a county road south of our city limits. What the developer is proposing is that at where they adjoin Dixie Highway to the north, that they will have a left-only exit up to 512. They will then do whatever required improvements are to that point. Now, if they propose to do an exit south of there where they do adjoin Dixie Highway, they will be, I'm sure, required by the county to do further improvements on Old Dixie. But it would be, yes, on the developer's responsibility.
Thank you.
So, if I understand that correctly, then where the Old Dixie Highway changes from 2 lanes to roughly 1.5 or thereabouts, that's where the city property ends.
That's my understanding, yes, sir.
Okay, I thought that's what it was, but I just wanted to be clear for deliberations here. Any other questions, Mr. Carter or Mr. Mahdi? None?
No. Yeah, my only concern is that egress and ingress, like just one way in, one way out. That's the only thing. If they can put something to go into US 1 to alleviate that traffic, because it is going to be a big problem. That's my only concern. I mean, it's going to happen. We can't neglect it, but at least because I know when I got here a few years ago, they did that, they much needed that road here. Road behind the, right up here.
Power line.
Yes, power line. And when that happened, man, that alleviated a lot of that. People going into 512 from US 1. So I think over there, if you do something, at least one, not from Schumann and from, Del Monte, into neighborhoods, just, you have to have a flow out somewhere, I'm sure. That's my concern.
As Mr. Stokes is saying, so your first consideration is the land use.
Right.
Are you
I'm just
okay with
saying.
the low-density residential and make a motion and your decision on that? Then you can move to the rezoning and the conceptual plan. You're doing a recommendation to City Council. If there's some sort of worded recommendation that you would like to pass on to City Council to consider regarding entrances, that'll be with rezoning and the conceptual PUD plan.
Thank you.
That would be on the second matter.
On the second?
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. So I have no further, I'm fine with the land use change. Oh, you okay?
Yeah, I agree with you.
Does staff have any further comments to make relative to this public hearing?
If I may, I would just like to recommend that whatever your motion be, that it be you feel that it is consistent with our comprehensive plan or not consistent with the comprehensive plan. But that really needs to be within the motion.
Okay, so are we moving to a motion to approve?
The phrase?
Yes, I move to a motion to approve land use change from L2 and C1 county to LDR and CG.
This would be a recommendation to City Council.
Recommendations, with the recommendations.
Recommendation to the city council.
To city council.
Consistent to the plan.
Consistent to the plan.
Okay, we have a motion.
Mr. Simmons.
Motion and a second then. Janet, you're prepared to roll call?
Mr. Roth?
Yes.
Mr. Reyes?
Yes.
Mr. Alvarez?
Yes.
Hugan?
Yes.
Mr. Motti? Mr. Carter?
No.
Mr. Simmons?
Yes.
Thank you.
The motion carries to recommend to City Council on the Comprehensive Plan Future Land Use Amendment with a favorable recommendation to City Council. That's the land use. The other item, which we've been talking about along with this, is the rezoning, which needs to be addressed, and it's being requested for rezoning in a planned unit development plan, which Dory has given us some guidelines on. I think probably to follow the rate procedure, I should ask Attorney Stokes to read this for us. Is that correct?
Read, just as far as, yeah,
you did.
we're on the item 6D, which is the rezoning and conceptual PUD plan, zoning designation request for PUD-R, and the requisite approval for the conceptual PUD plan.
I'm sorry, we would need to have the staff follow up on that then.
Staff recommends approval of the requested zoning and approval with the conceptual PUD plan with the following condition: that a minimum buffer strip of 25 feet is required between areas of platted lots and bordering residential uses unless the bordering property is a stormwater right-of-way or an easement.
And that's as in your staff recommendation.
Yes.
Thank you.
And if there's anything else then that you would like to add to that or your recommendation to City Council.
Mr. Alvarez?
Again, yes, I would recommend to at least have, to look into, some alleviate to that dense area in there, because I mean, I'm going to see it. It's going to happen. It's going to be a problem, and you have to have an exit through US 1. That's the only thing that I recommend.
Mr. Chair, if I may clarify, please?
Sure.
Are you requesting that perhaps an additional exit or access point along
Well, right
Old
now we have
Dixie?
one on Commerce, right? Is that the one?
What I'm saying is that you would like to recommend that an additional
yes.
access on Old Dixie be looked at?
Yes.
As far as relieving some of the traffic?
Yes, correct.
And that's fine. I think there were statements this evening that I definitely want to clarify. There are 3 exits proposed for this property.
Oh, there are
I just want
already?
to make sure that
Okay.
everyone understands
Well,
that.
if that's the case, then that's fine. I just thought there was just that one on Commerce. But
No, sir. There's one on Del Monte, one on Old Dixie, and
Yeah,
one...
but Del Monte goes into Bailey, right? And then go out on US Human.
No, Bailey is to the south, sir, that goes off into Schuman. Del Monte is to the west of the property that will then go on up to 512. So there are 3 exits now, but certainly you have every responsibility to ask for another access to be studied and presented if you would like.
Okay, so where's it?
If I may as well, to the committee.
This one's your fault.
One of the things that we looked at was that situation. I can't control this whole railroad situation, and because of that, we have our 3 ingress and egress points. To get a railroad crossing, to go across some new crossing, right now with what's going on with the Brightline Railroad situation, it's an impossibility. It just isn't something that would happen. So we felt that with our PUD lowering our density, and having that to work from so that we can do our traffic analysis. I understand that we will be making road improvements. I understand that's on my dime. I understand that there'll be drainage improvements. I understand all that. And we accept that totally and gladly. But what we will do is have a complete and thorough traffic analysis based on what we're requesting with the PUD density. That gives us a working number to be able to run our traffic analysis with, and that would be the starting point to have all those numbers and that report come forth to the council.
Okay. Thank you. So I'll retract my request then.
So you're comfortable with the 3 points of exit then? Entrance, exit. Any of the commissioners have any questions or need clarification on where we're at?
Mr. Monte, yes.
Sir?
Is it, yeah.
I said my concern is all that traffic going out on Del Monte. It's just a lot of traffic without more data being presented. I just feel very uncomfortable, and I think the people that spoke regarding the impact on their neighborhoods, we should take some of that into consideration. That's a lot of traffic for the start of construction. Yeah, I just think there has to be more study on that. That's my feelings.
And if I may, Mr. Chair, and I absolutely agree, Mr. Motti, that this development will have some traffic impact on Del Monte and on that neighborhood. But I just want to be clear that the proposed over 5,000 daily trips will be spread between 3 exits. They won't all be exiting on Del Monte. So this entire development will be spread between those 3 exits. And I just want to make sure that you're all clear with that. And as far as the traffic analysis and the impacts from the traffic, they will be studied at the time of the preliminary plat, and any off-site improvements that will be required to mitigate for those impacts will be looked at and studied by our consulting engineers at that time. And so I just want to make you very much aware that we are very much aware of these impacts, and for every development that is done in the city, any impacts from traffic are mitigated by the developer. And you will have the opportunity to look at that at preliminary plat. I just want all of you to understand our process as we move forward with that.
Thank you.
The other thing too, when the city was all laid out, that was a street that dead-ended to an open field. How long it's been that way, I don't know, but after a while, it becomes, pretty much the norm that nothing is going to go through there. But as progress moves, things change and developments come along. So that's kind of a fact we cannot change. Any other questions? If not, I'd ask for a motion.
Call the question.
Usual, but
It's on you.
I'll go ahead and make a motion. I'd like to make a motion to approve item 6D. It's a recommendation to the City Council for the rezoning conceptual plan unit development, PUD, from the request to approve, to recommend to the city their request for a PUDR, Planned Unit Development Residential Zoning Designation. With the recommendations from the city staff to have a minimum buffer strip of 25 feet of the adjoining required between the areas of the platted lots and bordering the residential uses, unless the bordering property is a stormwater right-of-way or easement.
We have a motion.
I'll second that.
Again. Would you please?
Can they read it back?
Oh. Could you check us on the wording of that, please, the way we made the motion?
I'm not sure if Janet took that down or unrecorded.
Janet, did you get the motion as we made it?
Yes, I did.
Could you read it back, please?
Oh, I can't read it back.
Oh, it's on your tape, is
Yes,
that it?
it's on the tape. I thought you meant, did I get who made the motion and seconded it? I did.
Motion's been made.
I think it's pretty clear. You said to approve it, and you added the one condition that was on the staff report. So we have motion and a second.
Yes, second.
And would you please?
Roll call.
Who seconded it? I thought okay.
Mr. Carter did.
All right, I have that.
Yes.
Okay.
You-
Mr. Motti? Mr. Motti?
No.
Mr. Eugen?
Yes.
Mr. Carter?
No.
Mr. Roth?
Yes.
Mr. Reyes?
Yes.
Mr. Simmons?
No.
And Mr. Alvarez?
Yes.
We have 4 yes and 3 no.
Do we need a supermajority, or is it?
Majority.
Simple majority. Okay, thank you. Attorney Stokes, that's why you're here, to earn the super high dollars. You'll never be paid enough for everything you've done for us, seriously. So the motion passes to recommend to City Council favorable on the planned unit development. Okay. Next item on the agenda is unfinished business. Oh, we would like to take a 3 or 5 minute break, please.
You don't mind?
Would that be permissible?
A bathroom break. A bathroom break.
Sure.
Done it for council meeting.
Or how long over the rest is this gonna take?
Don't
5
really
minutes,
have
that's
anything,
it.
sir, we don't really have any business left on the agenda.
Nothing on the agenda.
So I don't,
We can close this.
we don't have any business left on the agenda, so I'm not
can
sure
close it, Joel.
you can take a break, yes, but I don't know what we would be coming back to. The city attorney has no report for
I
you.
know. Okay, then
Let's wrap it up.
I was just listening and I didn't know that. Okay, move forward. Unfinished business, there's none. Public input, this is open to the public then, if there's any public input. Hearing none, we'll move on. New business,
None.
there's none. Commissioners' matters. I just requested a copy of the PowerPoint from that one small housing project. I didn't see it yet, but that's, at this hour, it's, whenever staff gets to doing it, it's great. And what is the status on Senate Bill 1400? Do we know that?
I don't know. I would,
Okay. And the status on the Wendy's air conditioning unit on the roof as far as screening or painting?
I have been working with the owner. He has sent us a conceptual for some screening around the 2 units. They're going through, getting comments from the building official. But he is working on that
Good.
waiver, and he expects it within 14 days to have the permit in and beginning to screen those.
Thank you. City Attorney's matters? Thank you. Staff matters?
Nothing, sir. Thank you.
Meeting is adjourned.